Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for being in the live chat. Thank you for being here. If you can, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Rumble, please hit the like button, hit the Rumble button. And if you're watching us right now live streaming on X all over the country and probably the world, please hit the like button. And share this out to all your friends, especially those in the low information bubble, which is who we're trying to target here. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to get into the mayor's race. We're going to get into, looks like Zohran Mamdani looks like he stepped on one with his campaign finance issues. And hopefully we're going to highlight that now. And hopefully that gets more. There's also some things that happen in the NYPD and with Eric Dym, and we're definitely going to get into that. But first, today, as you know, we used to call it in the New York City Police Department UNGA. That's the United Nations General Assembly. And today is actually the day that the President Donald Trump, spoke at the UN. It's always on a Tuesday. So apparently the Secret Service foiled the plot to have some massive electronic net basically over New York City. So here it is from Crime in New York City, or Crime in NYC. A massive electronic device network capable of crippling cell towers and jamming 911 calls across New York City has been uncovered by the Secret Service. Investigators discovered the trove of devices, including more than 300 co-located SIM servers, a device or system that manages multiple SIM cards remotely, and 100,000 SIM cards within 35 miles of the United Nations. It wasn't immediately clear when the CAC of hidden devices was seized, and this is coming from the Secret Service. It can take down cell towers so that no longer can keep people communicate, right? You can't text message, you can't use your cell phone, and if you couple that with some of the other events associated with UNGA, use your imagination there. It could be catastrophic to the city, said Matt McCool, the special agent in charge of the Secret Service's New York Field Division. He also said early analysis indicates cellular communication between foreign actors and individuals that are known to federal law enforcement. McCool said he did not identify what nation or nations the foreign actors were located in or identify any of the people known to law enforcement. So kudos to not only the Secret Service, but that's the New York City Police Department as well. The NYPD is the first people on scene and would have to do all the legwork for foiling what seems to be a domestic terror plot, because if you take people's cell phones, jam signals, you can basically stop the entire operation in New York City. So kudos to the Secret Service and the New York City Police Department for foiling that, because that could have been a catastrophe. But that is why UNGA, people laugh. It's not anything to be laughable when you're there. I know it's annoying. It's a 17, 18-hour day in the NYPD, but cops work, folks. They really are out there. The rank and file are out there working. I can't say the same about the executive staff. And then this next one is a little strange, but it's not like you haven't been warned that this goes on. An off-duty police officer was apparently victim of a crime in Riverdale. So I want to play the video in regards to this because it's quite disturbing. Off-duty officer being robbed in Riverdale. So let's play this.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here on News 12 The Bronx. I'm Marissa Santorelli. Right now, police are investigating a bold robbery involving an off-duty NYPD officer in Riverdale. News 12's Brittany Cadet joins us now from where this all happened on Waldo Avenue. Brittany, what are you learning?
Yeah, Marissa, this robbery is something Riverdale residents say is not a normal occurrence in this neighborhood, but has been happening more often lately. Many of them blaming the new men's shelter that opened up just up the street. Police tell us this latest robbery happened here on Waldo Avenue by Dash Place at 10:30 last night. We're told the 31-year-old off-duty NYPD officer was inside of a car when a man on a moped came up and swung a helmet at him. He then snatched the officer's belongings and got away on that same scooter. Police say he went towards Manhattan University and was wearing a black sweatshirt, blue jeans, and a black and red helmet. One Riverdale resident who didn't want to show her face, knowing the thief is still out there, says she noticed an uptick in trouble lately with the shelter now open.
The past couple of years I lived here, they opened up a shelter up the block, and that's when more of the issues came along. Like, there was robberies here and there, but like obviously the neighborhoods blend between Kingbridge and here. But the stuff is happening a lot more ever since they moved in. So there's just a lot more trash, there's a lot more hanging out.
And police tell us that thankfully that off-duty NYPD officer was not hurt in this robbery, but they are asking if anybody has any information to call the Crime Stoppers hotline. For now, we're here in Riverdale. I'm Brittany Cadet, News 12, The Bronx.
Yeah, the moped issue, that's a recurring theme. People on mopeds doing, robberies or trying to snatch things up. And here's the area what it kind of looks like, even though this is I'd say a nicer area where you kind of don't expect things like that. But again, we don't even know if this officer was targeted, which he might have been, because this has happened also in the past where they targeted an off-duty police officer and jumped him. I think it was 3 or 4 people. So immediately after this, it was, the Finest Unfiltered Zone, Eric Dym. He had a video that he posted about, officers' safety, even off-duty. So I was figuring this was perfect for the circumstances of what unfortunately happened. So let's play that.
In New York City, police officers are being attacked at an alarming rate. There's a new phenomenon right now. So reality for an everyday New Yorker is now reality for everyday police officers. So when you get in your car off-duty, you need to have situational awareness because you're vulnerable like everyone else. Protect your shield, protect your gun. When you get into your car, understand your surroundings. This is a barrier. So before you get into your car, make sure you check your back seats. Check your surrounding areas. Position your back to the door. This gives you a positional angle and advantage. Understand right now that recent robbery in Riverdale of an off-duty police officer is not an isolated incident. We're seeing an alarming rate of 63% higher police officer assaulted in New York City this year compared to others. Now, we're not just talking about on duty, we're talking about off duty. So if you're a police officer in New York City, train yourself to have situational awareness. Your car is your domain. Make sure no one's in and around that car. They're watching you more than you're watching them. Be careful out there. Be careful out there, NYPD. Take care.
Yeah, not only is he correct, it's something I've always said, be aware of your surroundings. That was like one of the main things I preached every day when I was in the police department, because it's true. You need to have your head on a swivel at all times because you just never know until you're retired and leave New York City. So, and even if you don't live in New York City, you still need to be aware of your surroundings. So with that being said, I thought who better to have on today to discuss that and a little bit more, but the Finest Unfiltered Zone, Eric Dym.
What's up, brother Sal? Thanks for having me today. Always awesome being on your show, the Finest Unfiltered. Let's get this message out to everyone. And I think what's important about this video, and it just kind of dawned on me, and I was just wanted to talk about off-duty safety because I see the phenomenon, and it's an alarming rate of police officers being attacked. But those same tactics that everyday police officers should utilize should be for everyday New Yorkers. And it's not a sense of paranoia. Now, I will say that I did learn in Asia that the Japanese look at paranoia as a good thing. So it shouldn't be a sense of paranoia, but a sense of awareness, because this is the grim reality. Now, I always say the 2 benchmarkers to identify the state of New York City when it comes to crime is Central Park and Times Square. But if we were just to look at the Bronx, I think the Riverdale would be the benchmarker, because predominantly Riverdale is a great neighborhood. It's a great place to live. Even people in Riverdale, they don't put Bronx on postage. They put Riverdale because the pride in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing is a phenomenon. It's across the entire city. And the reality for everyday New Yorkers is a reality for off-duty police officers just as everyday New Yorkers.
Yeah, it's just I find that, Riverdale, that's not an area where you're going to hear, anyone. I'm sure there's some robberies, but to also hear that it's a robbery of an off-duty police officer and the way it's done with the mopeds. Now, the moped thing is starting to become a problem where you see or you hear a lot more of these moped crimes, meaning someone on a moped snatches something off someone, or they, quickly run in, punch someone and grab their stuff and leave. So they're committing robberies on the mopeds, and the mopeds are illegal. As you know, they should be in the street, not in a sidewalk. So this is like, you're right, it's like a new phenomenon. And again, you're right that even when you're off duty, a police officer should always be cognizant of their surroundings, because it's very important, because you never know if you are being targeted. Just because you're going home doesn't mean that a criminal or someone you don't like or somebody in a different neighborhood isn't targeting you.
So the attack on police officers is a nationwide surge, and the numbers are alarming. But when we focus predominantly on New York City, the NYPD has seen a 63% increase over 6 years. Just to get an idea of how alarming that is, 63% of police officers being attacked. So that's not just on duty, that's off duty. So to me, that paints a grim picture of what's going on in the city. The streets are hard, the criminals are hard, but our cops, unfortunately, are now softer. And that's because the standards have been lowered. The police officers are predominantly meek, timid, and docile. We lost our veteran police officers to pass on that torch. And the reason they're also meek, timid, and docile is because there's no support system. And we see it so evident. I recently did an article, and John actually put out a video. And we put some emphasis talking about the Civilian Complaint Review Board. In the Wynn Rosario case, Jessica Tisch, in my opinion, should have immediately dismissed this case. Now, if anyone's unsure what that case is, 2 police officers were called and summoned to a 911 call to assist a family with an emotionally disturbed person. And they were in close proximity in a kitchen where that emotionally disturbed perpetrator brandished a scissor and approached the police officers. And unfortunately, they were left to fire their firearms. And the tasers, unfortunately, were ineffective. And we see the numbers. I put out those numbers in my article. John talks about it also. Sal, you talk about it. The numbers are they're grim when it comes to tasers. It's ineffective. And unfortunately, this is the reality. The reason why we have guns is sometimes some people need to be shot. And what does that mean? Does that mean we go around shooting people? No. It means that firearm is there as a last resort to save other lives of people and save the lives of police officers. So the realities of policing don't meet the realities of CCRB. CCRB has an obsession and a complete bias and disdain for the police department. And I think their overreach is coming it's so pivotal at this point that people are starting to see it and question the CCRB's mission. And the fact that Jessica Tisch did not dismiss this case immediately, to me, paints another picture of who's in charge of this police department.
Not to mention, I believe CCOB, they've kind of tried to defund him, but it really hasn't worked because they're still doing, that board is what found findings against these officers where everywhere else they've essentially been cleared, other than Tish James holding on to this without mentioning anything. Maybe she's still holding on to a drink from Sobro Gardens at the same time. So we don't know why they haven't closed out some investigation from the Attorney General's office. But that is, I believe, political, because here's Jessica Tisch, I'm going to go after these cops out of nowhere. You know how many people she should have been going after? Kind of like maybe her own chief of department and all these clowns underneath her. And yet corruption has flourished underneath her. And here she is picking 2. And here's the thing, too. Both officers, I believe, have vowels at the end of their names. I believe they're both Italian. And they're being hung out to dry because more than likely what's going on is they don't know anyone important, meaning they're not part of the Crumbs crew or the circle of cronyism and nepotism. So she's got to, press against them, which is what you're seeing in that case. And it's funny, there's a couple of things here in the chat I want to highlight. So Hard X Core says a lot of these cops are cops in name only, zero situational awareness, head in the clouds like a tourist. It's funny you mention that because in a little bit, I'm going to show you something in regards to that, because you are correct that many officers, they're not paying attention. So, and I'm going to play something about that later on. And John McCarry chimes in. He says, that's misinformation, guys. John Shell took care of those moped robberies 2 years ago, the crews. You know something? He did say that. John Shell did say that. And I actually, so I believe someone else in the chat, then Chronicles of the Collapse says it's everywhere. Came home years, back to my door, kicked in. one of the 3 apartments on my block robbed the same day in a nice area. And I think also letting all the illegal immigrants in that they were coming in, they used the, I guess, mopeds as a way of, getting around. So I don't know if it was an illegal here per se, but it definitely there's a phenomenon with the mopeds. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on that before we get to the main topic here.
Sure. I think that's important to understand that the dire straits that the city is in right now, and for our active cops in the NYPD nationwide, but particularly the NYPD, because we have a centric focus right now in New York City. If you're a police officer, your situation awareness on duty has to encompass your off-duty life also. We don't know at this point if police officers are being targeted off-duty, but you have to prepare for the worst. And one thing I learned in the Marine Corps is about anti-terrorism. So to me, pretty much this could be a domestic terrorism type of attack, attacking police officers. Or it could just be the streets are so bad and police officers are meek and they find themselves to be prey. But either way, you have to make sure, just as on duty, you don't allow people in your personal space. The same thing goes for off duty. And it doesn't matter your physicality of how big you are. That doesn't make a difference. What an adversary needs to see is that you are prepared for the worst, because they want easy prey, that you're paying attention, you're aware of your surroundings, that they can't get the jump on you. And the same thing goes for traveling home. Do not take the exact same way home every day, because people can follow you. You have to change it up. Yes, it may become cumbersome and difficult, but you have to change your route home and prepare for the worst. And be mindful of your car, that's your area. Before you get in that car, make sure that there's no one in the back seat. Check underneath. Check by the tire. Make sure no one's putting a water bottle there to try to make you get out of the car to look to see if there's a problem. There's numerous things that people could do to try to make obstacles for you to get out of the car and get the jump on you. So you have to be aware of these things. So if you're an on-duty police officer in New York City, be mindful of that. I don't know where that noise is coming from. But most importantly is that New York City police officers. Where's that noise coming from?
A little bit of gardening going on outside.
I'm just glad it's not me.
Yeah, it's not you. It's not you.
The bottom line is, on duty and off duty, New York City police officers have to pay attention. So the point is this: if New York City police officers are not safe, and they're not meek, and they're not alpha at this point, they've been emasculated. What is life like for everyday New Yorkers? What do everyday New Yorkers have?
I agree. That's kind of what it sounds like. Also, if a moped approaches you too, the same thing. The gardening and the mopeds make the same the noise. But so we mentioned this because we're talking about crime and what's gone on. I mean, if an off-duty police officer in Riverdale has to worry about crime, what does that bode for New York City? Because obviously, this is happening on probably the biggest failure in the history of New York City as a mayor. Eric Dym and his administration is atrocious. And there's a mayoral election coming up, right? So the 2 prominent names that are in this election are Curtis Lee was a Republican and Zohran Mamdani as the Democrat nominee. But Sam Antar, who's been all over this yesterday, posted this, and had Jim Walden actually jump in on it. And I'll read this. This is very important. And I'll also bring up the article here from Sam Antar. So he says, today's American mafia isn't mobsters and smoky back rooms. It's a syndicate of nonprofits laundering tax-deductible donations into raw political power. And then Jim Walden, right underneath there, says, breaking news, Zohran Mamdani was hit with a complaint to the Federal Election Commission filed by a prominent investigative journalist. Details below. The thing, though, is it's not the FEC. It's the New York City Campaign Finance Board, which deemed that Eric Dym has violated things, and they're currently investigating him. So he goes on to say, Jim Walden says, award-winning investigative journalist Tina Dupuy said, when I read the disclosures, I noted a couple of patterns and details that are well-known red flags for straw donor schemes. According to the complaint and filings, this pro-Mamdani super PAC's public disclosures with the New York City Campaign Finance Board have several red flags that together warrant further investigation. Red flag number 1, 2 employees of Center for American Islamic Relations, CAR, a 501c3, long suspected of ties to terrorism or treasurers of a super PAC, the Unity and Justice Fund, IJJF, which donated $100,000 to New Yorkers for lower cost supporting Mamdani. Because one of these employees serves as a car chapter director, the arrangement raises the appearance of a charitable endorsement, which is prohibited by law. If any 501c3 resources were used in connection with the fundraising, that too would violate federal restrictions. Most importantly, this structure could create the impression that CAR itself is soliciting funds for Mr. Mamdani, a form of political activity that would be useful for a 501c3. There's other stuff here, and it's also in originally in the Sam Antar article, but apparently Eric looks like Mr. Mamdani is doing exactly what Eric Adams did when he ran. So much like a mirror of what we said, that Bill de Blasio, Eric Adams, Zohran Mamdani, same person, just slightly, different character run, but the same characteristics. What are your initial thoughts on that one?
Well, to me, at this point, it's almost like in hockey, right? Get 3 goals, get a hat trick. But this hat trick is the joke, right? This hat trick is the joke on everyone else. If Mamdani is elected, this is the trifecta of disaster for New York City, and New Yorkers deserve better. We're talking about, let's highlight the greatest city in the entire world, right? I don't care where you're from, where you live. We all know that New York City is the greatest place in the world. Bottom line. And it's just completely deteriorated. Curtis Sliwa is the only answer at this point. Whether Mamdani gets elected or Eric Adams gets reelected, it's the same horse, just a different color. From de Blasio. De Blasio took the car to the cliff. Eric Adams drove it over, and so Mamdani's going to blow it up. And that's what's happening. It's unfortunate. And I feel sorry for everyday New Yorkers. And if they have an opportunity, they have to take a look at Mamdani's public safety plan. And it's very close to Eric Adams' safety plan, who built his campaign on the fact and on the grounds that he was a cop. Now, Mamdani wasn't a cop, but it doesn't make a difference because neither was Eric Adams.
No, he was an empty suit. But there's other red flags here. The second one, multiple people are listed as unemployed, donate up to $50,000 while they're free to do so with their own money. These donations suggest it could be a straw donor scheme. Donating to a campaign or political committee must be from the individual's own personal money. That's true. And not another funding source. These straw donor schemes can hide foreign money and foreign influence in our elections. Now, if we go back, Eric, that's what Eric Adams was doing. It's exactly what he was doing. Okay? And up on the screen, we have Mamdani, who called for the police department to reduce its workforce by 1,300 officers through attrition. He pushed to immediately end police overtime, freeze hiring, cancel new officer classes, and institute a moratorium on all new equipment purchases, which that's wrong, because what you really want to do is, Eric, hire more civilians. So you flood the streets with the cops that are doing these crony inside administrative jobs. Like I've always said, the precinct that has the admin lieutenant with 2 female cops as his secretaries. I mean, come on. I mean, some of these guys are perverts too. And that kind of stuff, that's what needs to end. But no, Mamdani is that what he's doing there is technically going to hurt the police. And if they were to, let's say, cut off union, they always give these union people raises. Stop giving them raises. Oh, that's right. They endorsed people like Mamdani or Eric Adams. So you got to take care of them. Right, Eric?
Well, I think the point to this is that, unfortunately, the police officers always get the blame and never the credit. Now, the police officer, in my opinion, the rank and file are doing the job to the best ability that they can with the lack of support system that they have, lack of training, because the majority of the police officers, more than 50%, have less than 5 years. And the only administration they know is Eric Adams, or maybe under former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And so they lack that training of intrusive police work. The torch wasn't passed on from veteran police officers because of the mass exodus, which included emasculating the police department, which led to a wrongful termination of yourself, an attack of my career from overzealous civilian complaint review board. We're seeing it also in this particular case we mentioned. Case after case, I think we proved our point that the CCRB has an obsession with police officers and by finding them guilty when it's completely unnecessary, not meeting the realities of policing. We have Marlon Bethel, who's an outstanding detective, who should be a first-grade detective right now, who was terminated. John McCary, who had the balls to speak out, which shows courage, and yet he had to leave from the police department. We see, and we're just the face of this right now, but there's many others out there, just like us, who didn't get an opportunity to continue on with their careers. And now less than the majority of the police officers have less than 5 years on the job. They have lack of training, so they're doing the best that they can. So instead of removing 1,300 police officers, we need to remove the leadership. That's where we need to remove. The active leadership have failed them.
And we also don't know what this Mamdani wants to do with people in CCRB, because one thing that Eric Adams did do was he kind of slashed CCRB, but somehow the board is still funded, so they're the ones making recommendations that overrule everyone else, apparently. So I don't know what he wants with that. I know what Curtis would do, because I don't think Curtis was, even though you want investigative bodies, these guys are all in this money pit in CCRB. They want all this money to go fund all kinds of crazy stuff. So, and speaking of Curtis Sliwa, he was in New York Times Magazine, and right here, or New York Times article about him, and they asked him 10 questions, and one of the questions they asked was right here: how many police officers should New York City have? And he said he believes the police department needs about 40,000 to be effective. The department's current budget allows for 35,000 officers. I have a plan to hire 7,000 that I believe is imperative to provide the public safety, and so that we don't have to move police around like a chessboard over and over again. What are your thoughts on that one, Eric? Because I think he is right to try to keep the numbers up, but I also I wish someone would say we're going to hire more civilians so that the civilians take the administrative roles. All these cops, like the 2 females working for the admin lieutenant, that's unnecessary and should be out in the street in the precinct. That's part of the problem. They allocate their resources and their numbers. They allocate police officers incorrectly. They don't position them in the right places.
You're 100% right. Curtis Sliwa has a major obstacle ahead of him, but he has to take it head on if he does become the mayor of New York City. And while those numbers are necessary, they are. We do need more police officers. The ultimate problem with the NYPD, where they suffer from, is mismanagement. And that's the problem. We have people that are in tier 2 of the NYPD. What's tier 2? Tier 2, anyone that's connected by nepotism, favoritism, cronyism. They get spots that are just completely unnecessary. We talked about it with Jack Stern, who was not a cop. And he sees it from the outside in. He sees the ineffectiveness of it. And it makes sense. And even from being a cop from within, we understand that. But there are police officers that make a substantial salary, and they're not doing the role of a police officer. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some administrative jobs within the police department that must be held by a police officer for classification reasons and for privacy reasons and ultimate intel and knowledge. But there are a majority that are just completely inept and not necessary. And that is a major problem. You have a gun. You should be in the role of a police officer doing intrusive police work, the majority of them. But the problem is management. We need to cut off the head of the NYPD, get rid of the management, change it over. We need real leadership. And that's the only way that the rank and file is going to get the proper training, knowledge that they need to do an effective job.
Yeah, the soccer mom's not doing a good job there. And I don't like hearing that anyone wants to keep her around, because that's ridiculous. But and we understand that public safety, if you're going to vote the mayor that's going to be for public safety, no, it's not Eric Adams, and it definitely isn't Mamdani. And we're not even going to look at Cuomo, because if you're a female, be careful. You might get a little handsy around you. It's Curtis Sliwa, right? But to go back to this part with Mamdani, because I think this is a big deal. There was a huge indictment on Eric Adams in regards to campaign finance violations. This is glaring me in the face right now. There's another thing, another red flag that was mentioned was one individual that has ties to multiple 2 nonprofit organizations contributed a total of $151,000 through multiple donations made over 8 days. Nonprofits have been a device in previous straw donor schemes. This guy's involved in a straw donor scheme. And if you go into Sam Mantar's article, where he says here, because he wrote this on September 17th, and it starts off with Soros to Mamdani, tax exempt pipeline raises IRS red flags. exposed 11.6 million in circular money flows between tax-exempt entities that denied relationships on federal tax returns while processing over 52 million in government grants. And he documents this. And this is important because this is his campaign finance stuff right here. This is important. And people, I hear the people with the low information taglines. Oh, this guy is a terrorist. Listen, don't attack people for their religion. Don't attack people for what they believe, right? In terms of who they want to pray to. This is what you attack a politician for. This is a scam. This is a felony. And what, we're going to ignore this because you love this guy so much? And this is where you have a hole, and this is what you hit. He's involved in tax-exempt money, redistribution of money. This article by Sam Antar absolutely exposes it, and Sam Antar is an expert, as you know, in white-collar fraud. So he has identified the issues and the inconsistencies with Letitia James and her mortgage fraud. He has now gone into what the 501c3s and 501c4s are, how they're used to solicit donations or basically launder donations through. And his entire article explains how this was done, who did it, and it also channels back to organizations linked back to George Soros. And I don't use the guy as a boogeyman, but that is a fact here by reading whitecollarfraud.com. You got to read this article with Sam Antar. It says Soros Working Families Party syndicate. Fresh IRS red flags as new evidence emerges. So what's the final thoughts on this one, Eric? Because this is if you're gonna go and look, if you're gonna go after Eric Adams, right? Why won't you go after Zohran Mamdani? Because clearly he should be crippled right now with this, and this should be a major scandal. It's written everywhere, but kind of like Jessica Tisch gets, she's the greatest police commissioner article every day. He gets the same thing where, oh well, Zohran Mamdani is the next big thing, but clearly he's running a criminal syndicate almost. He's got straw donors left and right.
Well, it's kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So I'm actually quite fascinated by this because last week, John and I had interviewed Sal Albanese. If anyone's familiar, Sal Albanese was a former New York City council member. I guess he's a paisan like you, Sal. Right?
I like to say that. Yeah.
So
good guy, Sal.
He's a nice guy. So what Sal did was he explained to us about lobbying, right? Which is completely different than this. But basically what he talked about is a lot of stuff when it comes to politicians. It's almost like legal corruption. And so we're kind of seeing this with when it comes to donors. And I think they really have to put more sanctions and more stringent rules on how donors are allocated because we're seeing straw donorship across the board. And we can't knock one. We have to knock the other. So, and what's interesting about that also is because Sal Albanese is actually endorsing Mamdani. So I wonder if that changes now that this has come to light. But it's quite interesting. I mean, we're just seeing this time and time again. And this is just another indication. We've been saying that Eric Adams and Mamdani are one and the same, right? Just getting a big hat trick and Cuomo's the same. This is another indication they are the same. It's just a complete reflection. They are all the same. Curtis Sliwa is your man at this point. He's the only one that wants to put more cops on the street. He's a real New Yorker, still takes the train. He has compassion for love for New York. And some people have thrown in my face, well, he's made this mistake. He's made that mistake. Everyone's made mistakes. It's how do you move on from them and learn from them? And I think that that's what we need to capitalize, to just hone in on someone's mistakes in the past. Well, why did we do that with Eric Adams and Mamdani? Because it's just the same. But the difference is Curtis has propelled himself and he's made himself a real life New Yorker who's the man for the job. That's the only way I see it at this point.
So June Stoyer says in the comments, Adams allowed all of the anti-Semitism to thrive. That is a fact. Also says Curtis Sliwa is out there with the people every day. He gets donations from these people. He isn't looking for big favors from his grandiose donors, which that is what Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, who is the mayor of Southampton, in Long Island, he's in the Hamptons all the time. That's who he's the mayor of. I don't know what he's really running for because he doesn't have the heart in this from what I'm seeing. He's just the guy. I don't know. Is it to be prominent? He had $6 million to play with that he didn't do anything with originally. And if you break down this election again, Cuomo is the past, ran the state into the ground, completely mishandled the entire pandemic. Okay. Then he has scandals in that he has people that worked underneath him that work for Kathy Hochul that are China spies. All right. This woman got indicted that worked for Kathy Hochul, which actually Andrew Cuomo was the one that employed her. She was working under Andrew Cuomo, and then she inherited her as chief of staff. Then, and also he cost the state $450,000 in a settlement for sexual harassment. That's Andrew Cuomo. That's the guy. Oh, he's the savior. Oh, he's not. Are you kidding me? He's a disaster. But he'll toe the status quo when it comes to real estate, just like the next guy I'm going to mention, Eric Dym. And do I need to say anything more about the guy? Epically corrupt, should be in prison. He might still end up in prison because it's just crimes all over the place with this guy, whether it's him, the guy underneath him. He never knows anything, but he's always involved in it. You know, every single day he's involved in something else. And that's it right there on the screen so people could see that there was a settlement from Andrew Cuomo, from the state for Andrew Cuomo for $450,000. This is not something I'm making up. So it says in total, New York taxpayers have paid millions to cover Cuomo's legal defense in the settlements. Okay, that is a fact that has been going on. Brittany Commisso, that's what New York had to pay former aide Brittany Commisso $450,000 to settle a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment and groping by Andrew Cuomo. Her legal team called the settlement a complete vindication of her claims. The state also paid $450,000 to another former aide, Charlotte Bennett, in April 2025. So that's Andrew Cuomo is a pervert that's you're paying for it in New York State. But some of you think you're going to vote for this guy when clearly if everyone just put their head together and said there's only one choice, and that's Curtis Lewa. Why are we even debating this? Now you got Mamdani, who, you know, he was an absentee assemblyman. The guy disappeared for the last 7-8 months, whatever it was in the assembly, has never brought forth a bill, doesn't vote for bills in the assembly. He's just a, we'll say an activist, just like Bill de Blasio was, okay? Now you have him in a scandal where he's clearly got straw donors and there's some shady stuff going on in the background, which is why he's got all this money too. I mean, it's not New York City voters that are, sending him money. So what's left? Curtis is your choice. I don't want to hear about the past. Somebody always messaged me about Curtis Lewa lied about something that happened in 1992. Didn't Curtis go publicly and admit to this kind of stuff? I'm talking about 2025. Because if we go to the 90s, there's plenty to hang on Cuomo and Eric Dym. But you voted for Eric Dym, right? And you voted for Cuomo to be the governor. There's plenty of stuff on him in the past. So I don't get it with some of you. That's why, we try to inform the low information masses because there's so many of them that think that this is, Cuomo's going to save us. Chronicle of the Collapse says, imagine getting groped by creepy ass Cuomo. $450K would not be enough. Sorry. And it's true. And here, June's story, this says, who cares about the past? Curtis was a Democrat back then. That's what I'm saying. You got to vote for who has the best policies. It's not Cuomo, whose policy is to hang out in the Hamptons. It's not Eric Dym, who's a complete failure at the moment and has been for 4 years. And Mamdani is an unproven, we'll say, now you can almost look at a political grifter because he's got money coming in from all kinds of foreign subsidies and stuff and non-profits. That's a felony. I want people to know that's a felony. So stop calling the guy a terrorist. Stop worrying about religion. Realize what you got. You got something now on paper to go after him with, which is donations from nonprofits with straw donors. That's a felony. That's what you charged Eric Dym with. And now you can charge him. So, and before I move on to this next thing, Kamala Harris was on CNN. Kamala Harris apparently endorsed Mamdani in a very weird way. So let's just listen to failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris with Rachel Maddow, who's a real piece of work herself.
The folks who you met with in this way include some of the people who you see very frequently now on MSNBC: Jasmine Crockett, Angela Also Brooks, Maxwell Frost, Robert Garcia Moore. Arguably the fastest rising star right now in Democratic politics is Zohran Mamdani, who is going to be elected mayor of New York City, and probably in a landslide if the polls are anything to go by. Lots of mainline Democrats have been very shy about his candidacy. They seem somewhat flummoxed by his success. As a sort of talent spotter in the Democratic Party, what do you think of him and his candidacy? And what do you think of mainline Democratic shyness and agitation about the prospect that he's going to win?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic nominee and he should be supported.
Do you endorse his candidacy?
I support the Democrat in the race, sure. But let me just say this. He's not the only star. I know that, he's in New York, and I know New Yorkers think they're the center of the world, and here we are in New York having this interview.
It is the biggest city in the country.
And I love New York, as the saying goes. I really do. But, there are people like Barbara Drummond in Mobile, Alabama, Helena Moreno in New Orleans. They're all running for mayor too, and they are stars. So I hope that we don't so over-index on New York City that we lose sight of the stars throughout our country who are right now running for mayor and many other offices, governor, and so on. So,
Eric, I don't know. He's a Democratic candidate, but there's other people, so it's kind of like, yeah, he's the afterthought. And Rachel Maddow, he's going to win in a landslide because she's probably going to vote 3 times for him, from 3 different parts of the city. What do you think on that? He's an afterthought,
That was about the dumbest response we've ever heard from someone. And thank God, if anyone's asking why Donald Trump won, there's your answer. There's your answer. I don't even think how you can make a comparison. That was the most idiotic response. So first of all, let's talk about her response, right? Mobile, Alabama. Now, that is a city in Alabama, but such a much smaller city and major different dynamics than New York City. It's not a hub for imports. It's not a hub that is a gateway to the entire city, and it's not the financial capital of the world. So her response is absolutely ridiculous. The mayor of New York City is actually very important to this country. Why? Because the majority of the federal funding does go to New York City. So her response is absolutely silly. So she seems uninformed about Mamdani, whether to vote for him or not. She just says because he's from the Democratic Party. So that's just absolutely ridiculous. Just shows how idiotic she is and how she's completely behind the times and has no idea what's going on. Because I can tell you this. I spent a lot of time in Alaska. I was there the entire summer. And I went to this old kind of creaky restaurant bar just to use the restroom when I was traveling to an area. And there was some old guys at the bar, and they were watching Fox News. And this is Alaska in the middle of nowhere. And who were they watching? It was about Zohran Mamdani. And they were far more informed than Kamala Harris because Mamdani has name recognition. That's why we have to put the finger on this, because Mamdani is very similar to Barack Obama. He came out of nowhere. He's got name recognition just as Barack Obama did. And if we don't put our finger on this, Curtis Lee will not win. And Mamdani will be the mayor, and the city is gone because the city's already destroyed with Eric Adams, and it just continues on. The only difference is Eric Adams can't be voted in anymore because he's got no chance in the polls. But Mamdani is no different. No different, but he's got the name recognition. And she's just completely off base and completely idiotic. But that was great. I got to watch that again because that's great comedy right there.
I know. Lone Silencer says, sadly, many people think like her and will vote for him because he has a D next to his name. That's exactly my point. And that's why the ballot will be very important because you have Mamdani, then Curtis, then Mamdani, and then Curtis. The first 4 names or both names 2 times over. It's very important to be on that ballot in the first couple boxes twice. Curtis should have been 3 times, but the Conservative Party, who is a disgrace and should be ostracized and launched out of New York City because all they do is self-promote and clout chase, They nominate some female nobody knows, and they're taking up space on that first line. And then all the way at the end is Juju's preferred candidate there, Eric Adams, who has no shot. And underneath him on the second line is Cuomo with two people who aren't even running anymore. So this will be very interesting. Yeah, as you know, I'm all for Curtis. He's a friend of mine. I'm all in. I just hope that New York City, proves us wrong and that they're not as low information as everyone believes. But again, it kind of like the deck is stacked against Curtis as a Republican, and Trump chiming in when he should really just keep his mouth shut about the race because he's not helping.
If I could add, the Conservative Party offered it to John first, by the way, and so John should have taken it because he would have been able to help Curtis Lee win this, but.
Yeah, they got some female that she's got no shot. It's just but the Conservative Party, I think John McCarry told the Conservative Party, why aren't you endorsing Curtis Lewa? Exactly. And their answer was, we don't like him, and I don't know, self-promotion. Look who we got. It's not just Eric Adams, folks. A lot of people in politics self-promote. They're not in it to do what's right or try to change things for the better. They're there for themselves. Look at me. They want to play the whole role, kind of like Kaz Daughtry syndrome. We'll get to him by the end of the show. Trust me.
It's not over yet.
Yeah, it's not over yet. So I did want to touch up on this past Sunday was the memorial for Charlie Kirk. As you know, he tragically passed away. There's an entire assassination investigation. They have this guy, Tyler Robinson. He may or may not be the patsy. There's many questions that are going unanswered. The FBI, shows you text message thread between him and his transgender, whatever that thing is that he talks to. And they basically lay out what the FBI would be questioning him about. We don't have any timestamps, as John mentioned on yesterday's show with you. We don't even know if those things are edited. You're not being shown everything. You're not being told everything. But, and I've been on other shows. I've been with Owen Schroyer and Crowdsource the Truth. Shout out to Jason Goodman and Owen Schroyer. And I've given my take on that stuff, on the crime scene being contaminated because there was no crime scene. The security team should be, they should definitely be interrogated. 6 security guys, no one's scanning the roof. We see drones in the event yet. Who's manning the drones? Because I know the security team should have had one guy with a drone up if you can't be on the roof. This is all failures that are sitting right in front of you. We're not even going into conspiratorial, who did what, and if another country's involved, which is just, that's insane to say another country personally was involved in things. So that is something that'll be questioned forever, kind of like the JFK assassination or the Martin Luther King assassination or the RFK assassination, the Malcolm X assassination. It goes on and on. The attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, the attempted assassination on Trump, not once but twice, and we still don't have any answers. So that is all, front and center. But the memorial, I thought, at times was very touching, at times was very political, and I think it was a nice little send-off coming from his group. But I would also look into his group because the person that would, or the persons that would do this would have the means and the motive to do it. So, as an investigator, I would look inside out, meaning inside the circle. So some of these people made very political speeches, and I'm like, this is a memorial. Why are we doing that? So I don't know. I get your thoughts on the memorial before I play a couple of videos from there that I wanted to highlight.
Unfortunately, it reminded me of the funeral of the murder of Officer Islam, NYPD, posthumously promoted to detective. It reminded me of that because instead of giving a eulogy, to me, it appeared to be political theater, and these politicians took an opportunity to use it as a podium. And it's unfortunate that we really didn't get down to talk about Charlie Kirk, and it just seemed to be about politics and going into this free speech or not free speech and hate speech, and that, which I think is a major problem. I think that doesn't even exist. So it's scary. We're seeing major problems on the left, but with this this service, we saw problems on the right too. So we have to, if we're going to be critical of what's going on the left, we have to be critical of what's going on the right. And I feel sorry because John and I spoke about this, and we both agree that no matter what, the widow is somehow used as a political pawn. And it's unfortunate to get out this message. And it really, unfortunately, moves away from being about Charlie's life and celebrating his life and honoring him in death and this tragic murder. But it becomes about politics. And it's just this theater and this arena, this sphere that we see it's really disappointing.
June, the story says if you're going to bring him up, bring up Detective Jonathan Diller. That as well. I remember a lot of this stuff is a lot of political jockeying. You did see some of that. Not every one of the speakers was like that, because there was some in the beginning that were, they were mentioning Charlie. They knew Charlie for many years. But then there's a lot of political rhetoric. And you're right. If this is the lone shooter, we'll say, the Oswald of our generation, they keep mentioning the left, the who. But who are his accomplices? I don't know. I don't know. Some of that stuff was like, some of it made sense. Some of it doesn't make sense. And they're harping on, the left, whatever that's supposed to mean. So this guy is a leftist. What are we identifying a group here? I don't know, because I thought it was a lone shooter as well. But, Special Hagen says here, the memorial squandered an opportunity to introduce people to Kirk, the man, not the ideologue. And that's a very good way of putting it. That's 100% what I'm saying. The man, not the ideologue. They kind of squandered that. So the first video I was going to play was you mentioned his wife, so Erica Kirk, and she gave a nice speech. It was very touching. It's tough to hear it because she's a grieving widow, and I can only imagine how she feels, and my heart goes out to her and her family. But she had something interesting to say, so let's play this.
That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
Yeah. Before I let you go, Eric, me personally, when Jesus was on the cross, he was saying them, not he. That's not one person. It was all, a bunch of people that were involved in his killing. Also, he does say to forget, but forgive, but not to forget. I don't want to forget something that happened if you murdered one of my family members or murdered someone I know. And me being a Catholic and a Christian, yeah, you're supposed to forgive, and that's great, but I'm not going to forget either. And me personally, people like this shooter seem like they're godless. When they're godless, they have the empty void in their life, which is why, because every human being has a void, because the void's supposed to be filled with, you want to be closer to God. So this person doesn't have that, is voided. Whoever did this, whether it's him, a bunch of people. So my thing would be, well, then I would open the door and you could walk into the abyss. And if you find your way through the abyss back to the door, then everyone could say, all right, I think this person has changed for the better. Clearly they're flawed, fundamentally flawed, and humanly flawed, like beyond flawed, because to pull this off, something isn't right here and here. So forgive them. Yeah. Forget. No. And I think their own punishment would be a lifetime of torture for themselves in their own soul. And what happens in the afterlife, which it could always be debated because everyone believes something different. But that's my best way to say it. It would almost be like a purgatory. If you survive your own purgatory, then people could welcome you back in when the time comes. I mean, that's how I see it. I don't know. Let's get your take on that.
I don't find myself a very religious person. I find myself to be more spiritual, but I understand the teachings of Jesus, and I respect the Kirk family's beliefs, especially the widow of Erica Kirk, and I respect her beliefs. In my opinion, I don't think you could forgive until you have the truth. And I think that's what's left out here. So in order for her, and I get it, she has to forgive and forgive herself of how she feels to move on in life, right? So, but we need the truth. And right now, that's why there's so many questions and online sleuths, because there's so much context missing, and it just doesn't make sense. We look at it like, well, this doesn't make sense, right? For instance, when we look at those text messages, what 22-year-old kid talks like that? And there's so much context missing. Why does it appear to be edited? And until the FBI does a great job in showing everyone all the different angles and why these angles don't make sense, and here's what happened in total transparency, I don't think we can forgive until we understand exactly how this came out and understand the entire tale of this story here. And until then, I don't think we can forgive yet, and nor should we. And the reason why I say that is because we want the truth. We should have the truth, the whole outcome, so we can have closure. And once we could have closure, then we could forgive. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong. I respect her opinion. I respect everyone's opinion, right? But that would be my belief, and that would be my thoughts.
Yeah. And again, we don't even know if he's the real shooter because, like I said, this thing is looking like there might be accomplices. Forgive someone who may not have done this? I don't know. I think it's just premature to think what's the full story here. We don't know it because nobody's ever transparent in the government, which is the biggest problem is we don't have trust or faith in our government. It doesn't matter what nation it is. It's the same story. So I know there's a lot of chatter about Israel. Folks, Israeli people don't trust that government either. And when people are critical of Israel, they're being critical of their government, which would be the same thing as being critical of our government here in this country, because they seem to run afoul amongst the other, about everything. And like Joseph Quinones says here, another cover-up, Sal. Cover-up, another cover-up said. It's looking that way. That's how I'm a cop, 14 years. That crime scene was corrupted. Where is the real footage? You're saying there's no exit wound. Someone said that his bone stopped the .30-06, the caliber. So that would mean that Charlie Kirk is now Wolverine and has adamantium skeleton underneath and could stop a bullet. I mean, this is, and then they changed that from his bullet. He was made of steel to, oh no, they were shooting down and it went into his spine and all this other stuff. I'm like, none of that makes sense. We're all created the same, and your bones, my bones, that round's going through it. It's going to go through everything. It doesn't shatter in you. It just, none of it makes sense. We don't even know where the round is. They never said they found it. They never said they found it on the autopsy table, but they did find one on JFK all those years ago, and they kind of hid that one also, just so you know. Special Agent says, as Eric and John said yesterday, the guy was way too damn poised, taking the one shot and then assembling and disassembling that gun. That also. I saw a video online also. We have now these trained marksmen, Eric. You were talking about that too. Whether you're in the military, whatever it is, right? Because some people, like Eric was saying on the show yesterday on the Finest Unfiltered, people that are in the backwoods may be better shooters than a sniper in the military. But you're trained to do this, by the way. And this kid doesn't have this kind of training. To assemble this gun and disassemble it and then reassemble it the way they said, which, by the way, his father was not a cop. That was another thing they said. It would take a good 3-4 minutes, and this is after you've shot someone, to try to use an Allen key and then disassemble this gun, which then sticks out in 3 pieces in your backpack. But we see a video of someone jumping off the roof that they're saying is him. It's just one big gun. It looks like a towel over it. But they're saying that he disassembled, reassembled the gun, disassembled, and reassembled the gun again and left it somewhere else. And then the change of outfits over and over again. None of this makes sense. I think that's why there's a lot of questions and there's no answers. And the government's not being very transparent. And like Joseph Keenan says again, when is the FBI coming out with the actual news? I hope there's interviewing people, possible suspects that may be involved. I agree. I hope so. I don't know, because it doesn't look like there's too much interest in that. I mean, I don't know if, Eric, you want to say something about that, because there's a picture of this guy at 6:30. He's out somewhere. He was eating after this, and he's wearing a different outfit yet again. He's wearing different clothes. He jumped off the roof wearing black pants, black shirt. He was seen with shorts walking through the air in the neighborhood before him. What's going on here, Eric?
So I like to talk about two things, right? So in order to understand a case, we have to test logic, right? Anytime detectives as investigators go through the case, they test logic. And when we look at logic here, it doesn't make sense. So you had mentioned the bullet. I think that's really important. We're talking about armored piercing rounds, 30-06, right? A 30-06 weapon would just go right through someone. And in order to stop that, you would need at least level 3 protection. And even then, sometimes with level 3 protection, depending on the high velocity caliber of that bullet, it could go right through the level 3 protection, right? We know as former NYPD police officers, active NYPD police officers wear level 3 protection. And that may not be enough, which is why you also get that metal plate to put in front of your chest as an additional obstacle to stop that round. So Charlie Kirk didn't have any type of armor. So it just doesn't test logic. And that's why we have so many questions. It doesn't make sense. And in order for us to have closure, it needs to test logic. The second thing is those text messages. You know, they're trying to paint a picture, I believe, by this evil massacre maniac who just has ice through his veins and just doesn't feel anything, because that's a man right there who apparently, if he did just commit this murder, has no emotions, and the text messages are so a matter of fact. Could you imagine you're having a text message with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and talking about killing one of the most prominent figures in the entire country, and it's just, oh, you did it? Yeah, I did it. Okay, let's get lunch. It was so matter of fact. So if we test logic, it just doesn't make sense. Chronicles of the Collapse, thank you so much for joining in. It says bogus text messages. And listen, do we have proof of it? No. But does it make sense? Does this test logic? It doesn't test logic. It doesn't meet logic. It doesn't make sense. And that's why we all have these questions. And that's why I say, if we don't have closure, Charlie Kirk is the next JFK, because these will be questions in movies and documentaries for years.
Yeah, also these text messages, I don't know if they're in sequential order or not. What is the timestamps on it? Usually you see that when they indict someone, and their indictment will say timestamp. We're not seeing that here. This doesn't make any sense to me, and why it's being rolled out this way. Other than this is another Luigi Mangione, mashup. They did the same thing with him. And then they had to drop charges, which might happen here. You contaminated a crime scene. There was no crime scene. So we don't know who did what, where, and why, and whose fingerprints are where, or who even entered the crime scene. We had a guy that worked for him that apparently took the camera out, also went in there and took out the SIM card, did all this kind of stuff, videotaped right after this happened. Other people just walking in, taking the tent down like nothing ever happened. Also, there was people going in there throwing the hats. The whole thing was contaminated. So the police there did a horrible job. There wasn't, I don't even think it worked. I don't know what they were doing. Crime scenes are one of the most important things in public safety. You need to manage and maintain the integrity of a crime scene. The larger it is, the better it is, and then you'll downgrade it when the moment comes. There was none there. And that is part of the problem. So we really won't know ever what's happening. And also think about in the future, his defense team, what they have to say about that. This case is not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't really want to see how this plays out, and this is going to go on and on and on. So we'll be talking about this for decades, probably till, we're no longer on this earth. We'll probably be wondering what the hell happened on that day, the day that Trump was shot at twice, with the day that Ronald Reagan was shot at, all these, it's just always never any transparency. But I did want to get to another part of this, because Tucker Carlson, who's now become this big controversial figure. I'm going to say this, Tucker Carlson, when I was being, nobody wanted to give Sal Greco the time of day, and Sal Greco was persona non grata out of this entire group. And I'm going to tell you, most of these people you saw speaking, I have been in the same room with them. They can't tell you they've never met me. They might act like, oh, I don't know him, but there are people that I've shaken hands with. I've been standing next to Charlie Kirk, and he might have said hello in passing, but I really didn't get into a conversation with him. So Tucker, though, did have me on his show and was interested in what happened to me and how the entire situation with me transpired. So that's what I'm going to say about Tucker Carlson, because at least this guy was a guy that cared at a moment when nobody seemed to care about me other than, well, I'll say publicly important would be Roger Stone. So Tucker Carlson always will get my respect for that. So let's see what Tucker Carlson, just to give context, what he said prior to this memorial and then what he said at the memorial.
You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views. You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be.
Yeah, it is very important that he said that. I agree with him that, you need answers. We also don't want to see this hate speech nonsense be brought forward, which Trump administration is pushing this thing left and right. Pam Bondi, we're going to criminalize hate speech. We don't even know what the hell hate speech is. I mean, if they're not arresting Juju, I guess he would be labeled as an Antifa domestic terrorist online, maybe. If you're gonna do that, then what country do we have? So I don't know if you want to give your take on that before I play that next video.
Yeah, listen, I think Tucker Carlson has been, pretty much on point. John had said the other day, it was pretty funny. We're talking about his laugh. It's kind of fiendish, but yes, I mean, I think he did the right thing by you, and he really addressed what's going on with the unions. I think he's been spot on with Charlie Kirk and what's going on with Israel. And it's just really unfortunate, the political theater that we see right now that has caused division. That's why we talk about the separation and the similarities and differences between JFK and also Charlie Kirk. What I find interesting is in the aftermath of the assassination of JFK, everyone wept, but it brought the country together. And what's interesting about this case is that the death and the murder of Charlie Kirk has brought, in the aftermath, division. And that's what's scary. And I think that's what Tucker Carlson talks about a lot. And that's what we see here. Listen, normally I don't address trolls, but I think this needs to be addressed here. Juju says, what information did Sal give Roger Stone while he was active? Clearly, Juju has a personal bone. But you know what, Juju? You'll see. And I'm sure you'll see during your deposition.
Yeah, if he is one of the people he might be, certain disgraced, triple-chinned executive NYPD, you're not getting away just because you think you're walking away with 3/4. So I don't know. He's an odd character. I've never seen someone. I mean, I hope you're just making enough money constantly watching the program. So then he did give a speech at the memorial. So this is an epic clip that's gone everywhere, what he said. And let's just play this.
A decent man and one of those rare people you meet who you just groove with in conversation and have these very intense conversations that you don't stop thinking about, which is my experience with him. But the main thing about Charlie and his message, he was bringing the gospel to the country. He was doing the thing that the people in charge hate most, which is calling for them to repent. So how is Charlie's message different? And Charlie was a political person who was deeply interested in coalition building and in getting the right people in office because he knew that vast improvements are possible politically. But he also knew that politics is not the final answer. It can't answer the deepest questions, actually. That the only real solution is Jesus. And the reason, it's really simple. Politics, at its core, is a process of critiquing other people and getting them to change. Christianity, the gospel message, the message of Jesus, begins with repentance. Christianity calls upon you to change. Our core prayer given to us by Jesus, the Lord's Prayer, demands that we forgive other people, but preceding that is a request for our forgiveness. In other words, forgive us our sins, meditate on what we've done wrong, how we've fallen short, and then it becomes possible to forgive other people. That is a call to change our hearts from Jesus, and that is the only way forward in this country. That is the only solution to where we all know we're going. And Charlie knew where we were going without that. And that is not a call for being politically passive. Of course not. I stood at many stages with Charlie calling for various people to be elected, particularly Donald Trump. And I'm proud of that. It's only an acknowledgement that what Charlie was really saying is that change begins, the only change that matters, when we repent of our sins. We, me. A recognition that the real problem is me and how fallen I am. And that was the reason that Charlie was fearless at all times, truly fearless to his last moment. He was unafraid, he was not defensive, and there was no hate in his heart. I know that because I've got a little hate compartment in my heart, and I would often express that to Charlie about various people, and he would always say, that's a sad person, that's a broken person, that's a person who needs help, that's a person who needs Jesus. He said that in private because he meant it. So I guess I would just say this gathering and God's presence, God's very obvious presence in this room, the presence of Jesus, is a reminder of what we've known for 2,000 years, which is any attempt to extinguish the light causes it to burn brighter. Every single time. So as we proceed into whatever comes next, and clearly something's coming next, remember this moment. Remember being in a room with the Holy Spirit humming like a tuning fork. This is the way. Right here. This is the way.
Yeah, see that right there? I think he was the best speaker of them all because he memorialized Charlie while also bringing what, not only I believe, but many that were in that room believed and what Charlie believed in. I know they focused on that clip that he was, being like either sarcastic or like, this is how Tucker is. He mentioned the hummus comment and, oh, he's an anti-Semite, all this crazy people coming out of woodwork. Tucker, if you don't know him, he's a brilliant guy, very smart guy. And I know there's been, he says one thing or another, but right in that moment, he couldn't have said things any better.
I think it was powerful speech. And what's powerful about it is it kind of reflects on how this country was built. The foundation of this country was built on separation between church and state. And what that foundation and the principle and concepts is that church was always the hierarchy of the two. What does it say on the back of a dollar bill? In God we trust. So I don't care if you're Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Islamic, whatever your religion is, Buddhist, we all understand there is a God, and whatever that is for you, and that is the hierarchy there, and that's what he was talking about, right? And politicians are second to that, and Charlie Kirk knew that, and Charlie Kirk's message was that people have to do better and show sympathy and empathy for others, and that's what's impressive, and that's why I'm really impressed by and moved by his wife's speech, because in the close proximity aftermath and the loss of Charlie Kirk. And for us, Charlie Kirk is a figure, a man with a microphone. But for her, Charlie Kirk is the man she lays down with at night, who's her best friend, her lover, her husband, the father to her kids. That's her everything. And she still forgives. So God bless her for that. That's really impressive. And you know what? Maybe we need more people like that. And that's what makes this place a better place, and understand that everyone is going through some conflict of their life, right? Everyone's going through some conflict. So great speech. I think it was powerful. And just remember that in the back of the dollar bill, as we said, in God we trust.
Yeah, it was a powerful moment. I don't like to go on, but they were trying to say that he's anti-Semite. Clearly, there's people calling him a Qatari, whatever. They need to relook into certain other people and what they're doing and what they've been involved in. So again, I like Tucker Carlson personally, and I don't forget what someone like him having me on his show, what it meant, and that he was behind and he supported me at a time where others really didn't care, or they like, the hell with him and the hell with Roger, the hell with everything. You guys all deserved it. Meanwhile, we all know now what the police department was doing with a certain mob associate during the whole time, right? But that'll be litigated at a later date. So I say this: rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. I think that the memorial, like I said, that was a touching moment with Tucker. I think people like to focus on the wrong things, especially with certain people were speaking. Some of them were polarizing, like you said. But kind of like this show, sometimes when you have some people from the opposite side or people you don't agree with, and then you bring them on and you start talking to them, like some people don't like Tucker Carlson, but there he is with some of his words were very touching. And you always say, Eric, opposition means opportunity. And I think that's what life is really all about. People that you don't agree with necessarily, you want to have a discussion, because that's what politics kind of is. He's having discussions and try to come to agreements depending on, what two people want to do, or two parties or a country or whatever it is, a city, a state. So rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. And I'm sure we'll be revisiting information regarding that assassination. But I hope there's some kind of closure for his family more than anything else, and his friends. And hopefully some of those friends are not involved in anything nefarious. That's all I'm going to say, because all of this doesn't seem or feel right. So the next thing we're going to get to was Trump signs executive order designating Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. This is by Victor Navin in New York Post. Right here, it says President Trump signed an executive order Monday designating the shadowy left-wing group Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, according to the White House. The order comes after Trump teased slapping a terror label on a radical anti-fascist group last week. I hereby designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, read the president's order. You can see the picture of it there. All relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle any and all illegal operations, especially those involving terrorist actions conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa, or for which Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa provided material support, including necessary investigatory and prosecutorial actions against those who fund such operations. The president cited Antifa's pattern of political violence designated to suppress lawful political activity and obstruct the rule of law, and making a designation. What are your thoughts on that one, Eric? Because I think it's about 5 years too late, if you ask me.
Well, that was my point, too. I'm so glad that you said that, right? So Antifa really gained steam from 2016 to 2020. If we look at the history of Antifa, it actually started in Europe in the early 1930s, right? But it gained steam in this country from 1960 to 1920. 2016 to 2020, the pinnacle moment during COVID. And we saw the effects of it in cities around this entire country, particularly in Seattle and Portland. We saw the decimation of those cities, and really driven by Antifa. And as far as we know, Antifa is no problem. It's all good. I can do two things at one time.
Yeah, no, sorry. Something just popped up.
No, but Antifa is believed to be undercover at the January 6th event also. So this should have been something that's long overdue. The question is why? Why now? Why does it matter? But it does matter, right? It does matter. But the point is, why now? And is it because we're going to this movement now about putting a stop to hate speech and free speech? Is it convenient? Is that a deflection from hate speech? It appears to be that's what it may be. Because, as you said, this is 5 years too late. You're absolutely right. Better late than never. But really should have been done 2020, where it was so damaging to the entire country. Still is. But that was the point. It should have met its mark.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years too late. I think that this is, they should have done this 5 years ago when Trump was originally running in 2020, and this would have probably stopped a lot of things that happened, right? But they better late than never, they say. But like, okay, so what are we going to do with this? Because are these guys still running around? Who knows? Like, I know they just pick up and they'll just change. So what they'll do is it said Antifa on their shirt or their backpack, whatever they're wearing now, just say, Juju. And that's it. The Juju group now runs around. And then, that's what the guy does anyway. I don't know who has the time to do this other than maybe a guy who's applying for 3 quarters and has nothing better doing is online all day in the NYPD. I don't know who has the time to be like this guy online, but that's the next thing. They'll just flip-flop into the next thing. And now how are you going to designate him doing what? Are there going to be any indictments is the question. But there is something that I want to show, and it was that Tom Homan, right? This is the guy that very close to Trump here. Border czar Homan recorded taking bribe. Trump DOJ closed the case, reports. Right? So you see here, and this is in the Daily News, and it says, I don't even want to blow this up. This is unbelievable here, that President Trump's designated border czar, Tom Homan, was recorded by the FBI taking a $50,000 bribe last year, but Trump's Justice Department closed the case, according to multiple reports. FBI agents said Homan was peddling influence in an upcoming Trump administration when he approached him with $50,000 in September 2024, MSNBC reported Saturday. The undercover agents were posing as businessmen, and Homan promised government contracts in exchange for the cash if Trump won the November 2024 presidential election, sources told the outlet. When Trump won, Justice Department investigators briefed incoming administrators on the Homan case as part of the vetting process for incoming leaders, sources told ABC News. Homan was part of Trump's first administration and a fixture on the campaign trail, and Trump named him the border czar shortly after winning the election. FBI agents decided to monitor the situation and see if Homan made good on his promise from September 2024, sources told Reuters. But shortly after Trump's inauguration, his former personal attorney and then Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said he would not support this probe. MSNBC reported it was officially closed in recent weeks, sources told the station. This is unbelievable. Tom Homan has not been involved with any contract award decisions, White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson told the Hill. Homan himself called the investigation BS when asked on Saturday. The Homan investigation was part of public integrity section of the Justice Department, according to MSNBC. That section was in the spotlight earlier this year when numerous leaders resigned when asked to drop the corruption case against Mayor Eric L. Adams. Eric, Emo Bove was in the middle of all of that. In fact, the guy became a judge in one of the biggest quid pro quos I could ever, put your eyes on. This seems as if Bove, and this is, again, this Boris Epstein circle, this right here would be an entire investigation in itself, whether it be from Congress, if any of this, and I would lean toward not only being true, Reuters picked it up, MSNBC picked it up, ABC picked it up, and the New York Times picked it up. These are heavy people that, if it's false, you have a multi-million-dollar lawsuit if that's not true. That is disturbing because the public integrity section of the Justice Department, they were the ones tasked with Eric Adams' investigation, Eddie Caban, Jeffrey Madry, all these buffoons, Kaz Dodry, John Shell, all these buffoons in New York City. That was their investigation. That essentially now Where did it go once everyone resigned? Because Emo Bove, who's corrupt, right? And also now apparently he's personal attorney in a conflict of interest, was the one that killed the case. That is no good. And Emo Bove killed Eric Adams' case. And Tom Homan is pictured with Eric Adams, right? And I understand allegedly he's very good friends with John Schell. So I don't know, Eric. What do you think about that? Because if that's true, you need investigations like forthwith on why that would even happen from Congress, because they're the only one. DOJ answers to Congress.
Spot on. I think we have to be critical of the right just as critical as we are of the left. We can't say we're critical of Eric Adams, the appearance of impropriety with potential bribes and corruption with private contracts, when we see it on the right now with Tom Honan. What do we see? We see what looks like a cash bribe. I mean, here's someone who's doing enforcement, but we'll leave this stuff out for later. And when it comes to this, we have to be critical because he did publicly come out and say he did nothing illegal and there was no crime. What he did not say, he didn't say, I didn't do anything, I didn't do nothing. And after that, it's been kind of quiet. If I had this type of accusation or you had this type of accusation, we'd be stomping our feet screaming, how dare you make these accusations? But the fact that this is trying to fade away leaves a lot of questions. What is the truth here? And you're absolutely right. If this was a false allegation, there would be some serious lawsuits. But the fact that this is just kind of quiet and fading away leads me to look at this and say, you know what? Maybe he did do it. Maybe he did do it because it looks like that more than it looks like he didn't do it because of the response. The response to me is a telltale, and it's an implication and indication of possible guilt here because there would be hell to pay. And Tom Honan himself is a very vocal guy. He's not shy. We've seen him before testify at Congress, and his response to this is kind of meek. Not what we expect from him.
It's just unbelievable that would happen, though. And, Lone Silencer says it best. Trump's DOJ has its own crumbs crew going on, clearly. That's the best way to describe it. Emo Bove and all these guys. Listen, it's Boris Epstein. He's the guy that presented Bove and Todd Blanche to Donald Trump, who then used him as his lawyers, both of them. Boris Epstein is not a real lawyer. He has a law degree and he practiced law somewhere, but there's no cases on file that he ever did, like a real criminal case. He's got a criminal record as well. Shady guy he's trying to sell the office himself. He got caught. There was a report. Of course, nothing happened with that. It was in the New York Times. There's evidence of it. Somebody actually made a complaint that ended up becoming part of cabinet. So, what can I say? And these guys intertwine with each other because they'll go roll into the Eric Adams circle. So I don't know what to say other than if that's true, Tom Homan should be not in this administration. And it's just funny that if he is linked to a guy like John Schell, what would you expect? Special Hagen says, wasn't the $50K offered to Honan before Trump was elected? It still looks bad, but that's an expensive bribe with no guarantee that Trump would be elected. That is correct. It's still a bribe. It still leads to other things. Why was the money used? Who did what with the money? And I thought this guy worked for the administration. He doesn't need this kind of money.
That's a good question, Sal. Who did what with the money? And that's why this is looking like another crumbs crew. So spot on who said that, because we see a lot of movement with money in this administration, and this looks like almost like a reflective mirror. So disappointing. We see right now at this point, Dan Bongino, he's someone not to trust. Kash Patel, he's someone not to trust. Pam Bondi, it's one after another. And now Tom Homan. Who do we trust in this administration?
There's the infamous picture. Look, seeing these two guys, I've noticed one thing. Anyone that's seen in and around Eric more than once, more than twice, which Tom was, he was at his office, they were talking. There's some kind of misdeeds going on behind the scenes. That's the allegation you always hear. So why would this be any different? He got his case dropped. Eric should be in a prison cell right now. Had he gone to jail like he should have, you would have had Jumaane Williams. New York City would have been screaming right now, and you would have been well on your way to Curtis Sliwa landslide victory in November. But instead, you had all this interference. All the real estate guys got their wish. And now you're crying because Mamdani may more than likely become your next mayor. And he's not going to be doing the real estate guys any favors. He's going to be giving that George Soros group all the favors. So you have yourselves to blame. You have yourselves, all those people, Eric Adams, we're going to fall into communism and all this stuff. If Jumaane Williams is socialist, well, you're going to get one anyway now. All because you didn't do what was supposed to be done. Follow the rule of the law. No one's supposed to be circumventing the law, but apparently they all do. If you're in politics, I don't know what to say. So the next thing is going to be this crazy incident that occurred over the weekend. And this is coming from Eric Sanders, okay? Because this article is in Newsday, but, Newsday, you got to have a subscription. So I'm just going to, read what Eric Sanders said. East Meadow House fire under investigation. NYPD lieutenant placed on modified duty. Newsday reports that NYPD Lieutenant Javier Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran and supervisor in the violent gang task force, has been placed on modified duty after a fire destroyed his East Meadow home Friday night. Nearly 60 firefighters from multiple departments battled the blaze, which left the property heavily damaged. While Nassau police first suggested the fire appeared non-criminal, the cause has since been revised to undetermined. The county fire marshal has stated a suspicious cause has not been ruled out, and the NYPD has opened an internal investigation. Unconfirmed accounts from department sources suggest the incident may be connected to a domestic matter, though no official findings have been released. If true, it highlights the complicated intersection between personal turmoil and public accountability when law enforcement officers are involved. For now, the facts remain under investigation. Transparency and candor from the NYPD will be essential to maintaining public trust. And they're now investigating this lieutenant who I understand, and there's a picture of the fire, that this had to do with a domestic incident. So I don't know what you have to say about that, Eric, but this was all over the place in the last couple of days.
Yeah, and well, it just solidifies and validates what's going on with the NYPD right now. It's scandal after scandal and rumor after rumor. And eventually at some point we have to say, well, there's a pattern of a problem. And that's why I said who's the next mayor is very important in this. It's who is going to take this head on and clean house, because the NYPD rank and file deserve better. It's completely mismanaged. The upper echelon is a disaster at this point, and we need to clean house. We really need this department needs an enema. The NYPD needs a complete enema at this point, because it's an epidemic stemming through the entire department. It comes to the leadership. Now, do we have rampant amount of police officers or sergeants and lieutenants going out there having cases like this, if this rumor is true, blowing up their homes? Not necessarily, but it's an indication of what's going on with the NYPD, because we see different scandals. We see a rumor about an NYPD sergeant caught in the Penn Station bathroom having a sex ring. We hear about scandals like this, and scandal after scandal. We hear about a young police officer driving around with a stolen plate. So ultimately, what does that mean? There is a problem. And in order to fix it, you have to get rid of the leadership and start fresh. And we need to have training, proper assessment, proper recruitment, and we need to clean house. And that starts also within the candidate assessment division. We need psychological evaluators that are licensed particularly for that. And Eric Sanders has highlighted that. So have you, Sal, on your show. Outstanding job. And it's another hole within the NYPD.
That is just unbelievable that would happen, that a lieutenant would even get involved in something like this. You're throwing away you've worked your whole life to get to the very end, and then you throw it all away over what? A domestic issue? You could have just got divorced. Yeah, but then you have to work, right? You're going to end up losing everything anyway. It doesn't make a difference whether you get divorced. If you're married, your girlfriend, if they've lived with you, you're going to lose part of your pension, which I don't know how the pension system will work under guys like Mamdani and Eric Adams and Bill de Blasio that want to just destroy your pension by selling out the city to everyone. And yes, Mamdani, the fact that he's hanging around with straw donors, that doesn't bode well. Okay, just so you know. I know someone in there said something about him in the chat just recently. So John McCarry says, last cop that was alleged to have burned down their home got assigned to the police commissioner's office and was then promoted. That is a fact, Eric. I don't know if you know that.
That's true. No, I'm laughing because I almost wish I would have remembered that to mention. That's hysterical, by the way, John. That is hilarious because it's so true. You know what? Cheat on your taxes, become the chief of the department. You make a lot of mistakes on this job, you could get promoted by rocket fuel, and you could get promoted to the police commissioner's office, chief of the department's office. First step, it's a great tier on the job, NYPD. Here you go. I guess our mistake was being general population. That was our mistake.
It was. It really was. I just can't,
You know what? The concept fritos. That's what we should have done.
Yeah, you party with the mob associate, you'd be okay. God knows. And there was a lake in the back. I mean, there's rumors about that also. God knows what these guys are involved in, but don't ask questions. Only worry about only worry about minuscule things. The cop with the white socks on the street. Get him. Go after him. What is he doing? Why has he got white socks?
Sal, that's what we did wrong by having integrity. You know what? If Marlon and John would have had fake vaccine cards, if you would have just lied about everything and not and saying, I don't know who Roger Stone is. You know what? We don't same thing, you know what? But we told the truth. And that's what they don't want.
No,
you need to lack integrity to move it up.
Eric, I should have just said, Roger Stone, what are you talking about? I'm friends with Fat Joe. You haven't seen me back at Con Sofrito. We're all having everything. There's cocaine in the backyard. No problem. We're sniffing it up around here. Congratulations, Sal. You're now a detective, first grade. You'll be joining the Kaz Dordry clown car, and you could go around and do whatever they want with Miranda and all those guys.
Honestly,
that's all hypothetical.
Sal, that gets to me sometimes because I had one of my cops who's a great friend of mine. He was suffering from leukemia, and we did a whole event for him. But the hoops I had to go through, all these integrity checks and warrant checks, and it was embarrassing. I had to meet with the manager and representative of the bar restaurant, and I had to do a warrant check on him and get an intel number, all the stuff. I had to do a document and show every dime. I didn't know I could have just went to Concept Fritos. I didn't have any internal affairs log number, and I could have raised some sketchy money for him. I didn't know.
Yeah, no problem. That's what was going on over there. I have Area 2456 said, I met Slee when I met Mamdani. I like them both. They're the only two that care about New York City, but I'm voting Mamdani. Just look at his campaign. Slee can't organize. He has tried for years. Area, I suggest you go back on the show. Mamdani has straw donors. He's committing felonies. Okay, just so you know. Slee was not committing felonies, and he's very organized, and his campaign is being run under the auspice of the law. You have to run under the law. Your friend Mamdani's not. So I suggest you look that over. Because, by the way, if he does get elected, he could be compromised walking in, which is kind of the setup I kind of feel they have with Eric Adams. Once you have straw donors, they have you because they can open this up. They could come after you whenever they want. They clearly did it with Eric Adams, even though they already had him years ago, and all they did was compound everything. So the real estate people have you compromised walking in, and then they say, well, you're going to do this for me, or tomorrow, Letitia James is going to announce that you're under investigation for those little straw donors you have in your campaign. So if that's what you want, that's going to be on you. When it completely falls apart, Aria, you'll have to look in the mirror and say, I did this because I had a chance to be different. But you wanted to go with the in crowd. I don't know. You want to be friend Mamdani or whatever. The guy has campaign finance issues. That's a fact now. So,
Sal, you know what's interesting about this is the name recognition and the credibility that Mamdani's getting and garnering from people, because the reality is, here's his resume. You ready? It's blank. He's got nothing to show. He's got zero to show everyone of what he's done. Even in his position, in his political position, he was barely there. So what has he shown? What credibility has he shown to protect people? And not only that, please take a look. Take a look at Mamdani's public safety plan. It's public information. You can just look at it online. There is no plan. It puts the NYPD at this lower spectrum of the hierarchy where it's basically being run by civilians.
Well, hold on. I see Aria keep going back and forth here. I do have the evidence. It's on whitecollarfraud.com. I just said that. You clearly aren't watching, and you got your head in the crowd. Allegations, allegedly. Read the article. That's what we're all basing it off of. And they complain. There's an official complaint to the Campaign Finance Board. It's not alleged. Listen, what are you, like 25 years old and you're running around with the Soviet Union flag? I don't know. Be smart. That's what I'm saying when I law information. It's over. He's got to be voted in. This is what goes for voters in New York City, man. They just don't even.
On. And it just shows, Sal, right? It just shows how people are misinformed, and they believe that Mamdani is this guy to run the city with, as I said before, a blank resume. He's got nothing to show. You should have a resume to show experiences. That's why we have someone like Curtis Sliwa, who has a track record of experience and caring about New York City. Please tell me, what did Mamdani do for New York City other than give these empty promises that can't even be implemented forthwith once he gets into office? There still needs a lot of measures to actually have these things pass that he's promising. Now, they may sound great on the surface. Yeah, it sounds great to have stabilized rent. It sounds great to get all these freebies. But in the end, where you're getting that and who's paying for it, and what proof does Mamdani have to show you other than a blank piece of paper? You can't even bench press 135 pounds. If you can't bench press 135 pounds, then he hasn't taken the time for that. How is he going to serve an entire city? I'm not saying you have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but by God, take some pride in yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. Lone Silence has said it best. Sounds like a typical low information voter playing word semantics. Typical. Zero Zoom says communism is easy to sell but hard to swallow. That is a fact. Special Hagen said Arya is like lots of young people who are sick of what we already have. I'm reluctant to vote for Mamdani because of his lack of experience, but these young people don't care about that. That's and you see that Department of Community Safety. I don't even know how you're going to implement
this safety plan, lack thereof.
You know, I don't know. This guy is just a Bill de Blasio on steroids. Now you have straw donors. So you're walking in under investigation, just so you realize what you're asking for. The Campaign Finance Board does not forget that, and they will hold it against you. And it can recommend charges, and we already know you have a president that is not in favor of this guy. So if they have a campaign finance charge on him, they're going to do what they didn't do with Eric Adams and go the whole way and get rid of him. You guys are not, that smart. Kind of like Juju, who could be one of 5 or 6 different people in the NYPD right now. Online makes no sense. There's jobs to do, whatever. So the next thing I was going to talk about was we mentioned the NYPD, right?
Oh, yeah.
Eric Sanders put this out. This was from the New York Times. NYPD misconduct complaints surge under Eric Adams. The New York Times reports misconduct complaints against NYPD officers rose 60% since 2022, reaching 5,570 in the calendar year of 2025, or I guess the fiscal year. The highest level in a decade. Categories include use of force, abuse of authority, and offensive language. Substantiated cases jumped from 729 in 2022 to 1,064 in 2025. Mayor Adams highlights declines in shootings and homicides as proof of progress, but rapes and assaults are up, and trust in the department continues to erode. Here's the problem. I see these investigations less as genuine accountability and more as political theater. Having been on both sides, I know the unique challenges officers face and the realities of policing. Split-second decisions, imperfect information, and constant public pressure. Outside boards like the CCRB rarely capture that reality. Expanding CCRB's jurisdiction and budget might look like reform, but in my view, it's a disservice to taxpayers and inflates bureaucracy without improving outcomes when it really reflects is the spoil system at work. More jobs, more political appointments, more reports that make headlines but don't change the culture inside 1PP. If New York is serious about accountability, it won't be achieved by building bigger oversight bureaucracies disconnected from the realities of police work. Real reform means tackling misconduct directly through transparent standards and leadership that enforces them consistently, not outsourcing the problem to political arms. Eric, I know you're big with this. I agree with Eric with you can't expand CCRB. We also need more context to the reports, but with the real numbers, assaults and rapes going up, how do you trust the misconduct? But you have a problem with the nobody trusts the department, Eric.
Well, I guess this is a good time to plug our website, right? So if anybody wants to take a look at thefinestunfiltered.com, we have a website where it's a one-stop shop, and you can take a look now where we have a weekly newsletter with all the news that's going on in New York City, and we give you the crime stats. But in addition to that, we also put articles about what's going on in the city. And I did an article about the Civilian Complaint Review Board and how the comparisons of the obsession of the Civilian Complaint Review Board towards police department with bias and stain in comparison to the realities of policing. Now, CCRB has nothing but a political arm. We see the oversight from the DA's office, DOI, Internal Affairs, within the NYPD, and what it is to be a police officer. And the Civilian Complaint Review Board pretty much gets the last say, where no matter what, you could bypass all these things. You get through the gauntlet, then boom, it's like whack-a-mole, and CCRB hits you over the head and finds a way to find guilt. Now, 2 police officers are fighting for their career right now, faced with an armed perpetrator with a scissor in close proximity in a kitchen where they had no choice but to save the life of that family and save the lives of themselves by firing a shot. Yes, sometimes people have to be shot. Not something we want to do, but to save the lives of others and to save the life of that police officer. And yet the Civilian Complaint Review Board, who stresses out by watching body camera videos, and we have proof of that, where John and I did a podcast about that, expects the police officers to handle a different reality. And yet they can't give a response and an answer of how they should handle it. And yet they're fighting for their career. They're obsessed. It's a complete overreach. They're out of their purview, and they need to stay in their lane. I'm not saying we don't need accountability. Absolutely we do, but it has to be fair. So Jessica Tisch, I'm calling on you. You need to dismiss this case immediately, because that's a message right now. Who would want to take this job, and who would want to stay on this job doing policing? Absolutely. And in addition to that, Eric Sanders put out, I was talking about this with a great friend who's an outstanding investigator with police work. We both agreed that those crime stats, they put an emphasis on shootings and homicides being down. Now, in most shootings and homicides, these are people that are known to each other. You need to look at the robberies and rapes, especially the robberies. Most of the robberies are people that are not known to each other. That's a real crime indication, showing you that crime is up in the city. Most homicides, how unfortunate and tragic they are by people that know each other. But when you look at robberies by people that don't know each other, that's the real scary indication that crime is out of control in New York City. And they're fighting this perception control, perception versus reality. And the perception is the reality that crime is a major problem in New York City. Look at Riverdale. Look at the benchmark indicators, Central Park and Times Square. It's out of control, and there's no handle on it. Eric Adams has zero public safety plan, and also the one that Jack just put up. Thank you, Jack. When you put up Mamdani's, is another zero safety plan. So Curtis Lee was your only choice and your only chance.
I've said it. I see Arias going back and forth with things, mentioning green hemp and all this other stuff. Curtis Lee was plan mentions that cutting the red tape for small businesses. Curtis Lee would mention that. You know what he doesn't mention? Having straw donors, because that's a felony. But but on top of that, you mentioned something else that he doesn't have it. You didn't see a guardian angel. You say you're 43. I'm 43. I saw them on 18th Avenue as a child. I was like 5 years old. I saw guardian angels. I've seen guardian angels everywhere. I used to see them out in Staten Island. I used to see them when I worked. Okay. Again, I'm like, leave the room. I really don't care. I mean, I have no patience for 43 going on 20, mentally, really. This is what low information. This is what goes in New York City. It's really a shame. Here's a one this is breaking news. Ryan Ruth found guilty on all charges. He's the person that tried to assassinate President Trump in West Palm Beach. We don't know if he ever worked alone. They're going to throw the book at him, and, he defended himself, and he's not even a lawyer. What can I say? Two final things here before you leave, Eric. I want to play this video. This is someone, and there's going to be a little bit of language here. This is someone that was commenting in regards to cops and, like we were mentioning before, what they're doing, because there's a flood of them on the street corner and stuff. So let's see what she has to say about a certain incident that occurred in her area.
Eric Adams, Donald Trump, whoever the fuck is in charge of the NYPD, right? The fact that these niggas is on every corner, Crystal, Fountain, Chestnut, Dosha, Euclid, Cypress. There's 15 of them in front of every fucking building. and 2 people still managed to get shot on Euclid? How? Oh, you know how? Because these niggas is not serving and protecting. They in their phone on fucking Instagram. Y'all know how y'all taking the phones away from the students in school? Y'all should take the phones away from the fucking police so they could concentrate on the streets and the crime. I'm sick of them. Like, hello, good night. Who you talking to? Go talk to somebody else. Like, don't hello, good night me.
Eric, what do you say about what she's saying since, as you know, we've seen a lot of police officers with their head in their hands looking at cell phones while they're out there on street corners. And then, like she said, there was an incident that happened. And where was it? Where was everyone? Were they on Instagram?
Thank God I'm married. She looks like a real class act. Pick her up at the dating pool. Well, it's unfortunate, right? Because the cops are stuck between a rock and a hard place. For the most part, the majority of their job is on the phone right now. All the technology that they use is supposed to be on the phone, and they are inundated with doing stuff on their phone, which is their memo book. They're inundated with looking up information on their phone, and there's no veteran police officer to say, screw that, do that later. You need to have situation awareness, just as we talked about earlier, on duty and off duty. Forget that phone, put it in your pocket. We'll get disciplined for it, and make sure that you're aware of your surroundings and look for potential perpetrators out there to actually be intrusive to stop crime. So it paints a big picture to me, right? There's some fault. Yes, you could say some fault on the cops, but really the fault is on the leadership. So instead of O'Hare, Chief O'Hare inspecting for white socks out there, instead he should have been inspecting Penn Station bathrooms. Why don't you make sure the cops are properly trained and aware of their surroundings so that they can be careful of themselves and to make sure they know what's going on? But unfortunately, these cops are inundated with so much information on their phone. We don't know if it was their personal phone. We don't know if it was their job phone, but they are inundated. I did see when I was a lieutenant towards the end of my career, unfortunately, I did see a lot of cops with their phones buried in their hands. It's a bad habit. It's a bad habit, but it really takes leadership to teach them. It takes the veteran police officer to smack that phone in their hand and say, listen, you better keep your eyes awake and you better be alert. So it just shows you the state of what the NYPD is in. So it really comes upon leadership.
Yeah. Again, I mean, her language is not anything to, write books about, but she has a point that on the street corner, the cops should not be having their heads buried in the phone while other things are going on. You have to be cognizant of your surroundings. You have to use the phone, turn around, your partner could watch, go in a store. Don't make it obvious where these people in the neighborhood could see you, because they could also dime you out, if you know what I mean. See, this girl, Aria, said she was leaving the room. She's upset that I said something about green. I mean, you mentioned hemp. Hemp is green. And I'm actually for legalizing marijuana, just not legalizing it where you're allowed to smoke on the street corner and do all kinds of stuff. Medically, it should be legalized. I think the president wants to do that. But what you, and if you take I mentioned the Soviet Union flag. Well, Mamdani's policies are socialist, and socialist is communism, right? So if you want him in office, there's a little bit of socialist in you, right? Even though I am now presenting evidence that he has a complaint regarding his campaign finances, that there's now evidence of nonprofits and straw donors and all kinds of stuff. I mean, sometimes facts are hard to smack someone in the face and they make excuses, but that's what debates are for. And when that doesn't work, the ad hominem attacks come. So what can I say? You try to educate people here. And again, low information people are tough when they dig into that low information hill is really hard to get. I mean, you have one in here all the time, Juju. I mean, very hard to get them out of the sand. So you just let the sand cover them. I mean, it is what it is.
You know what, Sal?
Yeah.
Sal, I just want to say it paints a picture to me also. If these cops have their heads buried in their phones on duty, I'm sure it's the same off duty, which is why they're also getting robbed off duty. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Put that phone in your pocket. Use it when you're in a comfortable place. As a cop, I mean, you and I both were trained. We all were trained. Everyone on this Finest Unfiltered network, you didn't even want to eat your lunch without looking around. So, but it's twofold. It's a problem because of the technology, where it's so much emphasis on these cops having their heads buried in their phones to do their paperwork, watch their body cameras. So it's a failure, because most of these cops, they're not getting overtime right now, because we need to give overtime for cash for ass. So cops are not getting overtime to watch their body cameras and to sign off. They have to do it while they're on their post. And also, there are some cops, there's both. There are some cops that are just completely unaware of the realities of policing, and their heads are buried their phones. So, but either way, it's upon the leadership to make sure that these things are accurate and taken care of. Leadership.
I see it too. Marlon says, for low information voters, he said, for low information voters is always a tough hill to climb. Lone Silencer says low information voters are always in their feelings. They suffer from FDM syndrome. FDM equals facts don't matter. Neil S. says Juju is in low information, but the question is what information he has. I don't know. I really don't know.
He gets the information from the podcast. That's where he gets his information.
And he reports it back, or he might be an executive that has that information. He hates his detractors or his critics. But I was going to end this part with you. I was going to show you one last video. Recently, our favorite deputy mayor in this administration put up a video, I guess, that now he wants to play firefighter. So let's have it for the one and only Kaz Daughtry.
I want to thank Rob and the Chiefs here for letting us utilize their academy. You're getting a behind-the-scenes look. You guys are going to be in the bunker gear with the tanks on. I watched Backdraft last night in Ladder 49 before I came here. So I'm ready.
It's a great experience. You can try it out. It's gives you just a little bit of a taste, a little bit of what a firefighter goes through in their training. I already had a profound respect for firefighters, for New York's bravest, but seeing just some of what they do, it's taken to new levels.
I thought it was absolutely excellent. We got to see what firefighters do on a day-to-day basis, how difficult their jobs are, and it really made me appreciate the hard work that these heroes do every day.
My visit today was very eye-opening. I learned so much about the effort that it takes for the men and women of the FDNY, all the work and preparation that it takes for them to go out on the job and risk their lives every day to protect New Yorkers.
Do you have the guts, the courage, the heart, the stamina, the determination to run into a burning building? That's what the women and men here in the fire department showed us, showed members of the City Hall staff. They got to see what it's like to be a firefighter for the day. For the people that want to criticize the FDNY, come here, put this gear on so you can see what it's like. If you have the guts and the courage and the heart to be a New York City firefighter.
Eric, he watched Backdraft that made him a firefighter for the day.
I'm trying to find out how much this costs to do this video.
I know. Is the only thing that matters, Eric, so you know, and this is the alleged backdoor stuff. Tiffany Raspberry, who's the deputy mayor, that's the woman that goes back to Jessica Tisch, because Kaz Daughtry's really running the police department. She goes to Tisch and kind of tells her, no, we need to do things this way. But it's Kaz that tells her to tell her because he's running the show. And Tish doesn't want to listen to Kaz, but she has to listen to Raspberry because, Eric runs the whole place. So you actually saw her face for once. That's the woman that really is the buffer who kind of like, looks down on Jessica Tish and tells her you have to do this because she doesn't want to hear from Kaz. But so you actually saw that on the whole thing. It's funny seeing the propaganda minister, Fabian Levy, as well. I mean, other than, here he is with that Bob the Builder, Kaz the Builder hat. I mean, my main thing here, Eric, is what does this cost in the city? What does this cost in the city? These videos of valor. And clearly,
fake valor. Fake valor.
Who's criticizing the fire department? What? They just didn't have a major scandal over the weekend themselves? Who's criticizing the fire department?
Yeah, shout out to Marlon. Shout out to Marlon for putting that comment up there because Marlon is spot on. Who criticizes firefighters? Everybody loves firemen. My cousin was a fireman. I mean, everybody loves firemen. Firemen are great. We know that. But the amount of money that they spend on all this content creation is really amazing. Why don't we get a bunch of these CCRB investigators and take them to hostile, emotionally disturbed person calls where people have knives and scissors, and I want them to see what the realities of policing are and see how they would handle it. Because they want to terminate 2 police officers that saved the day, that saved the lives of the family and saved the lives of themselves. That's a real fact. That's something that we need to talk about. But instead, we spend content creation for him to go out and put a suit on and play and hold the hose for the day. These skits are taking a mass amount of fire department employees' money, time. What are we doing here? And so the question is this: what does he really do? Because every day and each day we watch that he has time to make all these videos. What's his actual job? Because if he wasn't doing videos, what would he be doing?
I don't know. Mickey McMurphy says, will he pick up garbage cans with DSNY or is that beneath him? I guess that's next. That's next.
This is classic. He's got so much content creation and it's day in and day out. One video is better than the other because it's great comedy. But really, all kidding aside, the cost is astronomical with this. And is it necessary?
Jen Jones says in tomorrow's episode of Do Nothing Kaz, he'll pretend to be on MTA Motorman. What's next? Kaz, oh yeah, his brother Bryce says, I want to see Kaz the bus driver of Mamdani's free city bus.
We're gonna see Kaz when Mamdani's elected working at the city government grocery stores. That's what I want to see. I want to see him bagging up the groceries.
Eric
shout out to Stephen S. By the way. Yeah, they should do a video where he pretends to be a cop and actually passes a promotion test. They should do a video of Kaz taking a promotional exam where he actually passes. I'm like, oh no, that's a fiction movie.
Man, I think Marlon hit a nail on the head. He said he's auditioning for a show on Newsmax or Fox in January or in the Trump administration.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump loves. I mean, look, email Bove, Tom Homan. They're taking money. They're doing the same stuff Eric does. They might as well bring in the clown crew. With just finish it off. Because by next year they'll try to impeach him, and they'll have plenty of evidence with this cast of characters. That's what happens when you let money infect everything.
Also, I would like to do a video at the pension section and find out what exactly is his pension planned out, because we don't know. Was he a civilian? Was he not? Is he still on uniform patrol? So when you get a chance, Kaz, if we could get a video about the pension system and how it works out for you, I want to see that one. That would be nonfiction.
I just had to end it with you on that because every show should have a Kaz Daughtry video of valor, because first of all, we still don't know what this is costing and what the significance of that is. Special Hagen said you would think he would be working closely with the folks at correction since Rikers is in receivership, but that would mean he would be doing something besides self-promotion. This guy, look, I say this. We only have another, we have 3 months and a week left. Three months. We have about 13 and a half weeks left of this administration. I just hope I keep getting enough content out of this clown, because it makes your day. I know you won't stop laughing now. Now you have him in the firefighter outfit. You saw him as a cop. I mean, that was always like the guy was never a real cop. And now we had him in the uniform on the bridge. He's doing structural. Oh, look, he's an engineer. Overnight, he's Kaz the Builder. You saw him with the Kaz dollars. He's walking around with a fancy jacket doing runway shows. This guy's an endless. He is the real jester. Juju is the jester of the network. He's the jester of the universe because he's just pure entertainment. I can't get it. This guy. I can't stop laughing at this guy. I can't believe that this is big. It's not even that, Eric, if he wants to do this on his own time, that's okay. But to do this on City Dime that's the problem. That's what people have a problem with.
Well, and think about all these wardrobes that he has to use and utilize what it costs. The bottom line is you said there's 13 weeks left and you hope there's content. I just hope that we could cover. There's so much content. We don't have enough time to cover it all. And that's why these podcasts and platforms sometimes go 3 hours or more. There's just so much content with this administration. And for all the jujus out there, I love them. Honestly, I love these trolls and haters. And because we give them something to do. So you know what? And thanks for being a fan.
Yeah, I know. This is just too much. Now, Eric, you've been a trooper. I know you're out in Canada now, so you've been on for 2 hours and you're in between days because you're going to be on in the morning tomorrow, 8:05. Hopefully, you get a new video from Kaz before then, so you could play it with John and have a good laugh because this is just.
I'm sure there'll be something by tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Who knows, And it's funny because they said nobody criticized the fire department. Look at this weekend. They had an entire scandal about what they're doing to people, hazing them or whatever that was. So when you say nobody criticizes them, no, they do. They criticize themselves and they have litigation and all kinds of firings because under Eric Adams, even something like the fire department could not fall under corruption. Even that has to be corrupted by that guy. That's the best way of saying it. So Eric Adams, the Norwegian rat. That's all I gotta say. That guy could survive anything. He survives everything. Really does. Eric, thanks for coming on. We did a lot. We broke down a lot of different things. We discussed so many things. You're seriously, you're a good friend of mine. You're a trooper, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you in the morning at 8:00. And enjoy your time. You stay in Canada over there. I can't believe you're in Canada. Maybe you can make your way back down south here in Florida. Eventually. Pretty soon I'll make my way. I know Juju's keeping track. Oh, you were in Alaska. I'm in Canada right now, brother. If you want to come visit. And as they say in Canada, they say, hey. So with that being said, awesome as always. Finest Unfiltered. I'll see you in the morning, 8:05 live. Sal, you're the man. Thanks, brother. Good work. I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric. Good to have you. There you have it. I mean, we broke down a lot of stuff. There was a lot there, but that is just... I love ending it with him on a note like that. I don't know. I can't get the vision of Kaz Dodry out in a fire department, like a firefighter's uniform with that gut on top of it. So now let's get to the part everyone likes, the producer. I'm sure. I mean, you must have been falling off your chair watching that.
Yeah, well, I actually have a very funny twist to this segment today. I saw a lot of people in the comments were speculating that Kaz Daughtry might be going to the Department of Sanitation next, and that's the one uniform which is currently missing from his wardrobe. So ask and you shall receive. I decided to put on my very own, and I'll show the audience this in a second, New York City retro sanitation worker uniform from the 1980s. You can see the stripe here. Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Here's the patch. If I turn around, you can see the orange stripe on my back as well. But you can't send that to Kaz because you're probably like a small and he's like a XXX with that gut of his. Yeah, I know. And if he sees me talking about him wearing this uniform, this is your invitation to go put it on yourself and start throwing out trash. This is an old school uniform, by the way, from the 80s that I saw at a thrift store. I had one of those get it or regret it types of moments. It was $5 marked all the way down. I had to get it. I was planning on wearing it for Halloween, but now that we have a suitable moment to put it on and prompt Kaz to maybe follow suit, I decided to throw it on. Could I pass as a sanitation worker if I got the hat to wear as well? You could pass for a deputy mayor of public safety, apparently, with, as long as you do all of Eric Adams' bidding and then just be, covering up sexual assaults and all kinds of stuff, then you fall forward in Eric Adams' ministry. You keep falling forward. You don't fall on the sword. You fall forwards.
So
right. But this was a nice gesture on my part. He's probably going to be wearing a newer sanitation uniform, which is not made as nicely, is a little bit brighter. But you get the idea. I wanted to be a little bit spirited. But anyway, I heard the conversation earlier about Curtis Sliwa and Donald Trump, and I still can't understand how the Republican president of the United States of America is not endorsing the Republican nominee for mayor in New York City, a city that he grew up in, lived in for years, and has a vested interest in. I cannot for the life of me understand that. And it's weird because when he went on Fox and Friends last week to talk about Charlie Kirk's shooter, he had a very weird explanation for why he wasn't going to be supporting Curtis Sliwa.
Well, I think they have to have one say. And it would look to me like Cuomo, frankly, is leading the other two. And look, I'm a Republican, but Curtis is not exactly primetime, you know. He wants cats to be in Gracie Mansion. He wants to open it up as a kid. That's the home, for those that don't know.
He's a good crime fighter.
All right, I'm sorry. So you're not going to be supporting Curtis Sliwa on the premise that he's going to be bringing cats to the mayor's mansion. Last time I checked, the Mamdani family are animal enthusiasts, so he's going to be bringing some pets there as well. And you're really siding with Andrew Cuomo because you have a long-time business relationship with him over someone who really wants to restore honesty, integrity, and care to City Hall in New York City, something that the city has not seen in decades. Shame on you, Mr. President. I respect you. I understand your logic for a lot of things. This is not one of them. Sliwa is clearly the best candidate. He's the most morally sound. He's not willing to cater to special interest groups in the way that Mamdani, Cuomo, and Adams all are right now. I don't see how you possibly support another option aside from him.
I tell you what, too. I guess, well, listen, he's sitting with Brian Kilmeade, who's probably the dumbest guy on television. I've had enough of that guy. Like, he said that we should euthanize homeless people. Okay. So that's Brian Kilmeade, who also loves Eric Adams. So once again, people that in that circle, what can I say? Cuomo, we highlighted today, over what was that, $900,000, almost $1 million in settlements for sexual harassment just in the last year that involve the state paying for it. Eric Adams, who's morally, immorally corrupt, and Mamdani is an absentee assemblyman. The guy is and now you know about campaign finance violations that now over his head. Whether they get him today or tomorrow, they're going to get him on that. Okay, when they make those complaints, it comes from an attorney. That means they've already, and it's on the website with Sam Antar, whitecollarfraud.com. He's in trouble. That is a serious thing. You all laugh at it. You were laughing at Eric Adams about it years ago. And then look how quick that turned around on him. Only now they're going to weaponize the Justice Department to go after Mamdani for this. Mamdani will end up getting indicted. If it's not now, he's the mayor. They'll wait a few years, and that's how they're going to tell him, no, now we're going to indict you, because Trump doesn't even like the guy. So in the end, Curtis is the only guy who's not corrupt, has no campaign finance stuff. He's not going to be coattailing to anybody. He doesn't owe anyone anything. Okay, he's not a real estate magnate guy. So sorry, John Katsimatidis, you're not going to be telling him what to do the way you do on the WABC. So that's it. That's your answer. If you vote any other way, you're going to vote for the destruction of the city. As bad as it is now, you're going to vote for it to be like it's terminally ill. It's on life support. Just figure it that, you're just going to flatline it. That's it. That's the best I could describe it.
And it's ironic that a lot of people who are supporting Mamdani claim that he's going to be a mayor of the people when his mother is a multi-millionaire filmmaker. Like, he's going to need some industries to come to New York so he can raise money to pay for all of these free things that he's promising. And you have to imagine he's recruiting all of these entertainment companies in California, a state where he received his largest out-of-state contributions among any of the 49 other in the United States. I wonder why that is, because they're shooting movies and films, and he's trying to bring them all to New York City.
You see this Lone Silencer says, don't forget these claims against Mamdani or alleged, said in my best Aria voice, LOL. Yeah. They are officially been sent by an attorney. You understand that an attorney has to vet everything. And also, it involves Sam Antar's research, which you could physically look at. It's not alleged. He's proven it. His ties, is all this stuff. Nonprofits, those are straw donors. That's exactly what they were looking at. Eric Adams, who's been doing it his whole life. Look, all these people do it. Even Letitia James did it years ago, which I don't know why. I think the statute of limitations ran out on that, which is why they didn't go after her for that. But she did it when she ran for public advocate. Another thing that Sam Antar and Joel Gilbert exposed, right? On top of the Conso Frito stuff, which I've been telling you about for years now. But that's Tish James. With this is clearly a campaign finance violation. This should be hovering over him from now till election day. You have him now. That is a crime, and he should now he should be scrutinized for this, and they should be throwing this in his face. This complaint with the board, show all the people that were donating, all these straw donors. This is where you have a problem. And remember, if you got elected, campaign finance board, the feds could tap on their shoulder. Excuse me, this is a felony. I'm going to take this, and they run the gauntlet with him. That's what's going to end up happening here now, because you know that Trump doesn't like this guy. So basically, you're going to get checkmated in New York City. You're still going to have Trump over your shoulders telling you what to do, because that's enough to indict someone, just so you know. We just saw this with Eric Adams. And I know it's wrong. I don't agree with it that Eric should be in prison. He let him off, but now you're going to indict this guy if he gets elected. But unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles. I don't make the rules. I just have to play by them like everyone else. So that's what's going to end up happening.
And Sam Antar is a very reputable source of information when it comes to white-collar fraud. He happens to be a multi-decade expert on the subject matter. Also, no one's stupid here. Like, attorneys don't file lawsuits when they have fraudulent claims. And Mamdani is very much so an amateur at doing this whole campaigning thing. He's never really ran for political office, aside from being an assemblyman of a very small district in Queens. That's his only political experience. So he's bound to be making some mistakes in terms of how he's soliciting donations and contributions by virtue of not fully understanding the rules. And when they come with asterisks and shades of gray, and you really strip down the details, you come to find out that he's been accepting donations from shady, illicit places. Also, Qatar, the country that slaughters gay people, that financed his mom's entire career. You don't think they're somehow funneling money to him in some way? The guy comes from a rich family. He ran for mayor with the expectation that he could be financed for his run. He didn't do so saying, I wonder where the money is going to come from. I need 50,000 New Yorkers to donate $5. Otherwise, I'm out of this thing. Come on, guys.
The problem is going to be the nonprofit. This is not something that you just, this is nothing. No, this is a big deal. And if you're sleeping on it, just be prepared. What I'm telling you is the road to how you stop this guy, which would mean if he did get indicted, though, you then would have Jumaane Williams yet again. So you're still in the same low information bubble. If you just elect Curtis Sliwa, you avoid all this stuff. That's it.
We're going to come to find out once the election is over that this narrative that Sliwa had no chance was totally false. Because if he finishes in third place, even within 5% of Andrew Cuomo for second place, he clearly could have made a run at Mamdani for first place. So we just came to all of these conclusions because media personalities and various sources of information, low information people, were telling us that Sliwa had no chance. And when enough people believed that Sliwa had no chance, it started to become reality. They didn't go out and knock on doors to campaign for him. They decided not to donate any money to his campaign. And as a result, that ended up becoming a fact instead of what was once an illusion. That was what it was originally, right? Like we were all led to believe that Sliwa had no chance, but in actuality, he had a great chance. People just don't want him to be the mayor because he's not going to be representing these multi-billion-dollar companies. He's going to be representing the neighborhoods of New York City. He's gone around to all of them, by the way, in campaign season. So he's going to be serving them, not serving the special interest groups. And that's really something that makes people feel uneasy, unfortunately.
Yep. Jen Jones said it. He's an actor, and to some youngsters, he's apparently doing a good job. Generation X, Midwood parts of Williamsburg and Borough Park better vote big. I think if I'm dying, I don't know. Your problem, like I'm saying, this media hype plays into low information. Oh, he's at 40-something% when he's not. And now you have something to hammer him on with campaign finance violations that have gone on right now. And he's going to be investigated right now. They're not saying that with Curtis. All right. They didn't say Cuomo doesn't even get anything, and Eric can't even get funds. So now you have your leading candidate going down the same road as Cuomo and Adams. So what more do you want now? Now you don't have to mention Islamophobia, terrorism. Now you just got to mention this, because this is what you just elected a guy 4 years ago, and the guy previously that had campaign finance issues. Eric got indicted, right? De Blasio got everyone else indicted. Eric himself got indicted. Now this guy will be getting it. It's just the same thing all over again. So you're going to Mamdani will be another Eric Adams. And he'll be under the thumb of the Justice Department. So that's what you're going to get. Instead, Curtis Sliwa has no strings attached to anyone. That is the guy you want. I don't know how many more freaking times I'm going to say it. But then again,
yeah.
You know, like this, like I kind of say, Jack, it's New York City. I mean, just a couple of months ago, we thought the Mets were headed to the World Series, and now we're not even going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. But I see here, I hate everything, for example, says city-run groceries failed in places like Kansas.
Yep.
Folks, everyone watching at home right now, stop getting carried away by these crazy phrases. When we talk about city-owned grocery stores, quote unquote, people are envisioning Whole Foods merging with Trader Joe's, with Key Food, make some crazy, like, singular grocery store. When we talk about freezing the rent, we're getting carried away thinking we're going to have these long, year-long rent freezes, when in reality, he's probably going to be saving people $40 or $50 a month at the maximum, which amounts to about a week worth of groceries over the course of a year for a working family, $500 or $600, something like that, right? So instead of getting carried away with these crazy things, he supports communism, he's a terrorist, he's a jihadist, he wants to have city-run grocery stores, all this nonsense. Talk about the things that he's actually doing poorly. His policies make absolutely no sense. He's accepting donations from very shady, weird places and is not being transparent about it. He lacks political experience and has been totally uninterested in the job he was elected for 4 years ago for the past 10 to 12 months. Let's start there and hammer him on the things that are accurate before we put out this hateful rhetoric, which Sal is actually helping him gain voters because he's able to call out the nonsense and have more people come to support him as a result of it. It's not actually helping him or helping the public in terms of propping up one of the secondary candidates. I don't think people are fully aware of that, unfortunately.
I know. I hate everything says Sliwa has to hire a better social media team. I disagree. His social media, you got to understand, he gets a ton of views, all that stuff on social media, but as you know, we have someone right now who's a deputy mayor, who's the mayor of social media, that would, if he ran an election, get crushed because he's a clown and he's the deputy mayor of public safety. So that doesn't mean anything. I've seen it before. People that are big on social media run for office and get destroyed. So Curtis is out in transit, at housing, in the Bronx, and Staten Island, and Manhattan, and Harlem, and Queens. He's everywhere.
He's touched dirt in every single neighborhood in New York City, unlike any of the other three candidates.
Correct.
I mean,
you see him everywhere. You see him at all the events. You see him at all the parades. I can't say I say the same for the other guys. Eric, you'll see him at the nightclub, that's for sure. And Mamdani, I mean, this guy doesn't even want to go on ABC and do a town hall. He's upset about Jimmy Kimmel virtue signaling. That's not how you're going to win. I mean, you have to be in it to win it. You have to campaign, be on the ground. It's just never ending. You barely get any sleep. Curtis is a workhorse. He wants this. He wants to do this for all the right reasons. The other three don't. It's going to be your choice. Are you going to be low information? Or you're going to say, I'm invested in saving. This is my city, my town. I'm invested in saving this. We're gonna see what everyone does in November. You know?
Yeah, no, because people are going to ultimately speak at the ballot box when this is all said and done. We can talk in front of cameras, speak in front of microphones, hear all the expert opinion analysis, look at all the polls that we want. But ultimately, people are going to need to speak with their voice at the ballot box, voting for the candidate that best represents them. And it should be Curtis Sliwa without any reasonable doubt.
I see RH says this guy's always in it. He's like he's pro Mamdani guy. Said, yeah, the number one candidate was crushing polls. Take advice from you. No, your candidate has a legal issue. You didn't watch it. Maybe you should go back and read the campaign finance report. He's got a problem, and somebody filed a report on him, a lawyer, and then everything's been detailed on whitecollarfraud.com. That's how Eric Adams got nailed. So I don't know. You must be, again, it's just like the woman before. You just live in a low information bubble. I'm the almighty. You can't do anything to me. You can't. And then boom, you get hit and you go, what do you mean? My arm just fell off. I thought it was Superman. You just don't get it. You know, you think life is a game or something. You know, Trump, and he's mentioning Trump now. What campaign finance problems did Donald Trump ever have? What are you getting this from? You getting this from another low information circle of friends you have? I mean, really.
You know, the situation with Mamdani, I'm going to bring this full circle for a second. The situation with Mamdani makes me particularly disappointed that we will never see Charlie Kirk occupy public office. It was always his goal, politically speaking, to be the governor of Arizona and then the president of the United States. He probably wasn't going to be the president for another decade, but we needed more young leaders who really understand the political ecosystem, the structure of it, and how to occupy political office. Charlie Kirk really understood the foundation, learned it from a young age, founded Turning Point USA, was involved in this game since he was 18 years old. How long has Mamdani been doing this? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that? I know he volunteered for an organization in Seattle for affordable housing, came back to New York, worked for Tiffany Caban, Ross Barkan, several others in secondary type capacities. But we're never really going to have a 31-year-old firebrand who lived and breathed this his entire life in political office the way we would have had Charlie Kirk won, and eventually won. He probably would have been able to win. So it makes me doubly disappointed that he did not live long enough to ever get to be a candidate and run to be the governor and then the president. I think he easily would have won both too.
Yeah, I say I hate everything. I hate everything says Sal. I agree with you, but a stronger social media team will definitely get some of the young voters, especially conservative males. I think social media helps, but it's not the final answer. If Charlie Kirk would still be alive today, his operation, very much boots on the ground. They're knocking on doors. They're all over the place. They're flooding areas with young people reaching out to other young people. That's what Turning Point USA is all about. Social media plays a role, but who's to say that millions of views you're getting from Mamdani are not millions of views from all around the world and not people on the ground? You need a strong ground game to, affect change with young voters. So, again, social media plays a role, but it's not as big as you think when you need boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. That's what you need.
And you need to be a relatable figure. I know that Mamdani is relatable to very left-leaning liberals for some odd reason, given that his family's wealth came from a country that slaughters gay people. But Charlie Kirk was so effective because he was able to relate to college men, women, young adults all over the country. They looked at him, they heard him speak, and they saw him in themselves. And that's what made him so good. And we need more people like that. It's very sad that no one's ever going to be another Charlie Kirk. But as conservatives, it's important to coalesce and try and fill the void that he left. And I thought that his wife, Erica, did a fantastic job speaking about that at the funeral. I just hope that the family is not taken advantage of for a political agenda, as it kind of seems like that's the case based on everyone else who spoke at that funeral and made it ultra political, speaking about gun laws, other types of things. The guy died. He's leaving behind a very young family. He's leaving a huge void, politically speaking, in terms of the role he played in conservative politics in America. Have some respect for him. Have some respect for his name. and don't just use his situation as a pawn, because it's really screwed up what some people are doing.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot on this show. So I just wanted to. I know you want to mention the Mets. I mentioned them. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. What do you got to say about them?
I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be perceived as being too negative on the program here. But just so everyone knows, Sal is going to Lone Depot Park on Saturday in what could be a make, break, or totally non-important game for the Mets, depending on how you look at it. Right now, they're tied with the Cincinnati Reds for the third and final wild card spot in the National League with an 80-76 record. Crazy to believe that that's the case when they once held the best record in Major League Baseball way back in May. But you know, they really have their backs up against the wall. 3 games against the Cubs, and then they head down to Miami for 3 games against the Marlins. Really tough pitchers await them in Chicago at Wrigley Field. And then on Friday night, they're going to get the Marlins' best shot with Sandy Alcantara taking the hill. I don't think the Mets are going to make it out on the other side in the postseason of this situation. And if they do miss the playoffs after signing Juan Soto and bringing in all of these pitchers, there's going to be a lot of changes in Flushing. Steve Cohen cannot be happy about the possibility of not even going to the playoffs at all.
I'm going to say this. The Mets, the manager, Mendoza, you're going to say you have what you have to work with, but Mendoza overused the bullpen in the very few, like the first few months of the year. He taxed the bullpen. Every Mets starter is a 5-inning guy. We need to go back to 9-inning pitches. Doc Gooden once pitched like you won 24 games and pitched like 20 complete games a year. Okay. That's what you want to see. This specialist for this, specialist for that. Then everyone has Tommy John surgery. You got to go back. I mean, I always say Babe Ruth's record was kind of, back in the 20s, all they had were 2 pitches, but all those pitchers never got hurt. The minute you got all fancy because some of these guys got a little better and were hitting home runs, you're going to hurt your arm. So I think a lot of these things are analytics. Baseball's now like science. No, it's pretty simple. 2 pitches, that's it. You every now and then a curveball, but that again might snap you get your Tommy John or whatever. A lot of these guys going through the same thing. So you need pitchers to go back to 9 innings. We need stamina. Okay. You got to better use your bullpen. This guy absolutely taxed his bullpen. And then he lost one guy, Canning, went down with an injury. Kota Sangai is horrendous, 32 years old. Just win or lose with your young guys. And by the way, I don't think it's fair that they brought up all these young pitchers and now they're thrusted into a playoff race when that's not what you want a rookie to go through. You want the rookie to start the year. This is going to be high-stake games for the next 6 games. And the Mets just think it's normal. I can't blame Juan Soto. He's had a great year. No. Okay, you can't blame the hitters. Although they're streaky, their pitching has completely failed them. So, unfortunately, if the Mets do not make the playoffs, which I am betting on they won't, I think Saturday will be a nice game where no matter who wins, I win because I'd like the Marlins and the Mets. So, but in an alternate reality, the Marlins would have challenged the Mets for a play. They just missed it because they had one bad month, August. But man, and the Mets been disappointing. I can't believe. And Mendoza should be fired. And I don't know if the general manager, the president, you got to take a look at everything, that whole operation, because how do you let this happen? It's kind of like I know hockey's coming up with the Rangers. They're notoriously
don't remind me. Yeah,
horribly run team by Chris Jury.
Yeah.
Soccer, Inter Milan, they won this weekend, but they had a terrible week the week before. They lost against Juventus. Now, Inter Milan reminds me of the Mets, where they have the money. They have the money to get the right guy that could win everything in 1 year again, like they did many years ago. But they don't spend that money. They go for developing, retread, like guys trying to come on the comeback kind of player. And that recipe doesn't always work. And they're doing it again this year. So they're going to be limping through things. When the Champions League could be had, it may not be. The Serie A, the Scudetto, they had it last year. They blew it. Now they're starting off slow this year. So, and the Mets and Inter remind me of the same thing. Although Inter did win a couple of things in the last few years, they could have won a lot more. So That's what I'm going to say about that. Now, what do you got for us on the tonight at 10-Foot Tavern?
Yeah, the 10-4 Tavern tonight, coming up with Tom Joyce and Peter Forcelli. Paul Belly, retired lieutenant from the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, is going to be joining them live at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time, 19:05 for those of you who follow military time from the Leo world. So be sure to check it out. Should be a good one. And one final piece of New York sports-related news before we exit for the day, or before Sal touches on highlight, rather. The Giants are planning on starting rookie Jackson Dart on Sunday versus the Chargers, this per Adam Schefter. I mean, it's funny. Like, there's some sort of like magnetic pull between New York sports teams and controversy. Like, controversy like always finds a way to pull them in, right? And the Giants are off to another horrible start, 0-3, look totally lifeless on Sunday night. Monday morning, the team's broadcasters start going after local podcasters, saying they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, everything is imploding in East Rutherford. I'm laughing about that because it sounds sadly familiar to what we're dealing with, but it's a total dumpster fire over there right now.
The thing is, Jackson Dart should have started from week one. Russell Wilson's he's washed up, man. He's 38 years old. In NFL terms, you're a quarterback. The only guys that ever really defined age was Peyton Manning, and then obviously Tom Brady. Everyone, Father Time is undefeated for a reason. At 38 years old, Russell Wilson, he's not the Russell Wilson of 10, 15 years ago when he first. So you are getting a guy that's going to have ups and downs. Sunday was a brutal game for him.
Horrible.
And he played a great game. Dallas has no defense. They love that run and gun stuff. That wasn't going to work with the Kansas City Chiefs. You need someone who, I understand the Giants' offensive line is not that great, but you need a guy who could scramble. You need a guy who's young. You need a guy who's going to lead that team. And unfortunately, Russell Wilson's not that guy. So, and if the Giants don't win, their coach, Brian DeBall, like Lone Silence is saying that he's the ball's a problem. Look at how Daniel Jones looked. He's right. Daniel Jones is off to a great start in Indianapolis. The Giants get it wrong. I mean, look, they had Tom Coughlin. They've never had a good coach ever since.
I'm beginning to think that John Mara is the stem and the root of the problem. There always needs to be a scapegoat in sports.
Well, you know who the other owner is, right? Jessica Tisch's father.
Oh, really? I thought he was more involved with Lowe's nowadays. But
the Tisch family owns the Giants.
Yeah, they have a minority ownership. That's right. But I mean, with all of these teams, there needs to be a scapegoat. With the Mets, I'm blaming David Stearns for assembling a roster that was not meant to sustain the wear and tear of 162 games in the regular season. But with the Giants, I'm blaming John Mara, because no matter who he plugs and plays with as his head coach and as his general manager, it seems that all careers go to die with him. On paper, the tandem of Joe Shane and Brian Dable look fantastic, given the success they had with Josh Allen and building that organization back up in Buffalo. But so far, their tenure has been absolutely disastrous, and it doesn't look like anything's getting better. Don't lie to the fans, all of you New York City pundits say, oh, they're playing Super Bowl contenders. They almost beat the Cowboys 2 weeks ago. This is professional football, guys. Do you want to take a victory lap for any of those things? You need to be competitive on a week-to-week basis. And right now, this team looks like they should be playing in the CFL, not the NFL.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. The Giants, what can I say? That was brutal Sunday. And the Jets are no better. You know, they're blowing. They should have won 2 games that they lost. So, but the Giants are just it's hard to be a Giants fan. By the way, I do follow them the Dolphins down here, and they're 0-3. It's like you can't win anywhere. But the Florida Panthers season is about to start. And, of course, the Rangers, who Chris Jury is probably one of the worst general managers in the National Hockey League. But and before anything else, check out tomorrow also with the Finest Unfiltered, 8:05 in the morning, and you'll have Executive Perspective on at 17:05 with Rob and Ron. 17:05 or 5:05 live on Finest Unfiltered Network. But before I go, highlight started again. I don't know if you know this, so I'm going to show you. This was on Friday night, right? And this is my team, the Chargers. They played, and they had a great game. They started on fire, and we have a couple of new guys on the team. So we beat the Fireballs 4-2, and the Fireballs made the finals last year. So you see that first game, Arta, big shout out to him. He's like the most improved player. He won his first game. Now we have Jaden and Bradley who beat Joseph and Cabrera. And I know all these guys too, by the way. You know, you play, but they play hard. But it's a fun sport to watch. But Jaden and Bradley, if you don't know, Jaden is actually, his name is really Tanar Davis. If you don't know him, he's a Super Bowl NFL champion. He is fired up on the team. So shout out to him who always says it's a Lifestyle Miami, which that's who owns the team, Lifestyle Miami. And also Itabidi and Obila, they won their game. They won the first 4 games. Zuleika and Arta. Zuleika is our best player. So, and then the final game was the first time Aratz, whose brother Goshieri is the best player in the league, but they used to play together on the Renegades. They played a tough game, and Aratz won that one for the first time. He won a singles game against them. And, of course, today we're going to have, I believe, the Devils playing the Devils are playing the Cyclones, correct. But if you look at the standings through now, it's 3 games. Some people only play 2. We're in first place. We're 2-1 because we lost last week, one of the other games. And the Renegades are the defending champions. They have 2 wins as well. The Cyclones are in third. You know, they won 1, they tied 1. The Warriors, the Fireballs, and then the Devils. But this is going to be an exciting year. You could check out the schedule, highlightworld.com. So today at 5 p.m. on ESPN3, you'll have the Cyclones versus the Devils. On Wednesday, you'll have the Renegades and my team, the Chargers, all at 5 p.m. ESPN3 or YouTube on Highlight League. Also Thursday, the Warriors versus the Fireballs, 5 p.m. And, of course, Friday night is the big night where, you know, doors open, Magic City Fronton, Renegades against the Devils at 7 p.m. And, of course, you can go to Magic City Fronton and watch it yourself. This is the last year there. They're moving to the casino in Miami next year. So shout out to Highlight and Scott and everyone there doing a great job. And also Lifestyle Miami to Miguel, who owns the team. And I actually, to show you how important it was, because I did have a role in this team, kind of like a general manager of such, I did get this ring from when we won the championship, not last season, the season prior. So we did win it 2 times. So let's go Chargers. So with that, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a really long show, but we did cover a lot of news, a lot of bases. Special shout out to Eric Dym for coming on the show, and he's up in Canada right now. Thank you to all the supporters and the haters in the comments. You know, we take everything one way or the other. We like to see debate. We're not against everyone. Some people, though, they're low information, and some are also really working in New York City Police Department and hide behind monikers, which is ridiculous. Be a man or be a woman and show, you know, give us your real name. You know, that's what I say. I mean, John McCarvey says it all the time, but don't forget, check out Executive Perspective tomorrow, 5:05, live, and find us on Filtered in the Morning. I'll be back on Thursday. Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed the show, and please don't forget to vote for Curtis Lewa. So we're always ending on the same note, right? You're going to hear your favorite guy, your favorite mayor, your favorite politician all of America. But we're signing off from South Florida, which is a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?